like to call this meeting to order. Planning Commission meeting tonight, March 19th, 6 p.m. And we will start with the flag salute by Commissioner Watson.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Watson. And we'll have the roll call, please.
Sorry, one moment, please. Commissioner Hagel,
Here.
Commissioner Solis,
Here.
Turley Trejo,
Here.
Commissioner Watson,
Here.
and Commissioner Watts.
Here.
All right, thank you. Do we have any public comments on unagendized items?
Do not have any for items not on the agenda.
Okay. I'll go ahead and read the consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine, and all will be enacted by one vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless members of the commission request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. A total of 30 minutes is provided for members of the public to address the commission on items that appear on the consent calendar. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Public comments may be made in person at the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the commission secretary. Speaker cards will be called in the order received, and still images may be displayed on the projector. All other audio and visual use is prohibited. Public comments may also be submitted by email for inclusion into the record. Email comments must be received prior to 6 p.m. and submitted to planningcommission@temeculaca.gov. All public participation is governed by council policy regarding public participation at meetings adopted by resolution number 2021-54. Okay, on the consent calendar, we have number 1, the minutes. Do I have?
Move to adopt this consent calendar?
Second?
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Watts and a second by Commissioner Watson. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then we'll move on to business. Members of the public may address the commission on business items that appear on the agenda. Do I need to read that, Maricela, under the business?
No, I don't think it's necessary to do this. The public hearing one will want you to.
Right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and turn that over to Jennifer. Yes? Receive budget engagement session and provide general recommendations regarding the same.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. All right. My name is Jennifer Hennessy, and I'm the Director of Finance here at the city. And tonight, my budget team and I will be doing what we call our budget engagement session. This is a meeting that we have with all commissions this time of year as we're starting to develop our budget process. And we want to provide you an update on where we look financially as a city, and then go over, give you a status update on a multi-year program we've been undertaking to pay down the city's debt. And then we have a short little community satisfaction survey at the end that hopefully we have a little bit of fun with. So again, my name is Jennifer Hennessy, and then my budget team here tonight, we have Ward Comers, the Assistant Director of Finance, Paula Majors, Fiscal Services Manager, and Calette Dorset, who's our Management Analyst, and she'll get us started with walking you through the budget cycle overview.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Catlin, and I'm going to walk you through the budget process for our annual operating budget and our capital improvement program. In January of each year, we do our mid-year update, which means we review the revenue and expenditures for the current year to determine if more or less budget is needed to get through the remainder of the fiscal year. At this time, we also create our revenue forecast for the coming fiscal year and also draft our preliminary 5-year projections, which serve as the foundation for the next year's annual operating budget. In February, the City Council approves those mid-year budget requests, and all the city's departments put in their budget requests for the coming fiscal year. In March, we hold our budget engagement sessions with the city commissions, much as we're doing this evening with you all. And we also review the department review the budget requests with each department that they made the prior month. In April, we develop the proposed operating and capital budgets. In May, the council will, we hold a budget workshop where council can review the proposed budgets, and at a later date in May, City Council will adopt the final operating and capital budgets. And lastly, in June, distribution of the digital and hard copies of the budget books. The process for developing our annual operating budget is three-part. First, we look at the economic forecast, local trends, consultant recommendations, and prior year carryovers to make our revenue projections. Then we compile all of our operating expenditures, which include personnel requests, operations and maintenance costs, and capital outlay items. Capital outlay items are non-reoccurring costs that do exceed $5,000. And lastly, we incorporate our performance measures, which all tie back to our quality of life master plan, the department narratives, which include the services, goals, and accomplishments of each department within the city, and the fiscal policies to create the final annual operating budget. And there is a picture of our current year's adopted annual operating budget. The development of the capital improvement program begins with calculating available revenues, updating existing project and cost projections, and adding in new project requests. Then each project is linked to a QLMP core value, and any relevant operations and maintenance costs are factored in. For example, if a new facility were requested, the costs of operating that facility with staff, ongoing maintenance such as lawn care, things like that are factored in. From there, we ensure funding sources are identified for the first 3 years of the project. The CIP is a 5-year projection wherein the first year is adopted and there is a plan in place for the next 4 years. We then add in the supporting documentation such as future projects, the index, etc., and that becomes our final capital improvement program budget. And again, there's a copy there, or photo there, of our current year's adopted budget. And with that, I am done, so I'm going to kick it over to Ward Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Ward Comers, Assistant Finance Director. Okay, we're going to go through our fiscal year 24-25 mid-year budget projections, talking about the general fund. Starting with the economic outlook. And of course, everything that is now on this slide is probably irrelevant. If you listen to the news the last few days, you'll know why, and I'll talk about that a little bit. So the current economic outlook, we use different forecasting sources. We look at the national economy, we look at the local California economy, and that informs our budget projections for mid-year and for next fiscal year. In terms of the national outlook, and this is from a few months ago, using the University of Michigan's forecasts, they were expecting GDP growth to dip from 2.8% to 2.1%. If you heard the news today from the Federal Reserve, I think the consensus forecast is now 1.7% GDP growth for the coming year. The Michigan survey forecasts unemployment rising from 4.0 to 4.4%. The Federal Reserve, again today, reaffirmed that 4.4% as their projection. Inflation is falling, but sticky. So if you've been to the Waffle House or Denny's lately, you might be paying a 50-cent egg surcharge. So things are coming down, moving in the right direction, but not as quickly as many economists would hope. And then consumer sentiment has been uncertain and falling. The last recent consumer sentiment surveys have been dropping rather dramatically. People are worried about inflation. I know that I am. In terms of the state outlook, we use or look at a forecast from Beacon Economics. They suggested that the economy is showing resilience, but challenges loom. So some of those things that are challenging are inflation, interest rates, things like that. They forecast state GDP growth to be 2.2%, and they forecast unemployment in the state to be steady at 5.1%. Looking at the city's budget assumptions for next fiscal year, we use very different sources, as I mentioned. We look at, for a statewide sales tax forecast, we use our consultant called HDL. We've had 2 down years in a row statewide. Sales tax been down 1.3% and then 0.8%. Our consultant is forecasting a 2.6% growth for next fiscal year, 25-26, and we are assuming 2.5% sales tax growth for our budget. For our property tax, again, we use HDL as our consultant. They are projecting a 4.58% growth in taxable value, 4.37% growth in property tax VLF. We're assuming 4% growth for the budget. Gas taxes, those forecasts are put together by the California League of Cities. They are forecasting 1.9% growth. For building and development, we are forecasting flat or 0% growth. And then for our personnel budget, we are forecasting or including a 2.3% COLA, which is part of our contractual obligations at the city. Looking at the fiscal year 24-25 mid-year budget projections, which went to the City Council on February 11th. The year has been good. Sales tax is coming in at $44 million, property tax 11, property tax in lieu of VLF 11 million, franchise fees about 4.5. I won't go through the rest of them, but everything came in pretty much on target as expected. We did do a slight decrease in our budget of $220,000 on the revenue side. Looking at the chart to the right, that shows prior fiscal years and then 5-year projections going forward. The green, it's green, believe it or not, the green line, that's the city's revenues, historical and forecasted, and then the expenditures are the purple bars. And what you want to see there is the green line above the blue bars. So that means the city is taking in more revenue than we're spending. So the city's been in healthy fiscal position, and we continue that forecast going forward. Continuing on with the budget projections, on the expenditure side, public safety is our main expenditure here in the city. It takes up about 53% of the budget. So in more detail, the police or the sheriff contract is about $43 million, fire is about 11.7, and then we've got administration, public works, rounding out the rest. Total expenditures about $100 million for the city. At the mid-year budget update, we included an increase of about $2 million in expenditures total. That included some new employees to do fire contract or fire inspections in their vehicles. And then we've seen increases to our insurance rates, as many people have in their personal lives too. So the city is not immune to that. Looking at fund balance, which is one way to think of kind of how much money we have in the bank set aside. We are in a very strong position there. We've got reserve for economic uncertainty at $20 million. We have a secondary reserve of $5 million. We have a assigned or committed fund balance of about $1 million, and then we have available fund balance of $12 million. So total fund balance is about $38 million. The chart on the right shows the bars are the fund balance that we have, and then the black line with the yellow diamonds, that is the desired reserve according to council policy. So the chart shows that our actual fund balances exceeded the desired reserve for the last few fiscal years, and then we're projecting the same going forward. You may notice that the tall bar there that happened in fiscal year 21-22 for fund balance, and then it started coming down. That has been an intentional drawdown of fund balance to pay for our retirement liability, and Jennifer will talk about that in a little bit. Looking at Measure S for the mid-year. So for those of you that don't know, Measure S is the 1-cent sales tax that was approved by the Temecula voters in 2016. The revenues and expenditures for Measure S are accounted for in a separate fund for transparency purposes. And the City Council designated 4 main categories or 4 main priorities for Measure S revenue, and those are public safety, asset management, capital improvements, and community services. So the table at the bottom of the slide basically gives you that detail. Revenue for this current fiscal year is about $39 million, and that's going $10 million to public safety, $4.5 million to asset management, $43 million in capital improvements, and $17 million in community services. At the very bottom is the fund balance for the Measure S fund. So currently, we're projecting this fiscal year to be about $14.5 million, and then that stays $11 million, $12 million, $8 million, $6 million going forward. The Measure S, I talked about sales tax being down a little bit. Measure S revenue is down about $1.5 million, but that's been offset by interest earnings, so about $1.1 million interest earnings, so that's a good thing. The expenditures are mostly allocated to CIP for 24-25 due to prior year rollovers, so the chart in the bottom right there, the very tall green bar, that's kind of our CIP backlog. That's about $43 million of CIP expenditures that have carried forward from year to year. However, by 28-29, about half of Measure S will go towards public safety, and the other half will go towards community services. So the amount available for CIP is going to decline in the future years. Talking about TCSD budget projections. TCSD, or the Community Services District, is a separate fund that accounts for activities, events, programs offered by TCSD. Primary funding sources are program revenues, so that's how much we charge for classes, things like that. Measure C, which is a parcel tax on every parcel in the city, and then Measure S, or the sales taxes that we just talked about. There's 13 divisions in TCSD. They had total budget about $21.2 million, and the chart on the right will kind of give you the breakdown of each of those divisions. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Paula to talk about the capital improvement program.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Paula Majors, and I am the Fiscal Services Manager here at the City of Temecula. The Capital Improvement Program is a comprehensive 5-year plan that addresses the capital needs of the city. Capital projects are those that cost over $30,000, have long-term lifespans, and are generally non-recurring. The fiscal years 25 through 29 CIP is the largest in the city's history, with $927 million in total cost and 110 projects included in the adopted budget. The city has identified funding sources totaling $629 million, or 68% of the total CIP. The remaining $298 million is unspecified at this time. However, before construction begins on any of these projects, a funding source will be identified. In our mid-year budget process, one additional CIP project was added: traffic signal fiber optic extension. This evening, we would like to highlight a few of our CIP projects. French Valley Parkway Phase 2. This $138.7 million project is currently under construction. The project will alleviate the bottleneck on northbound I-15 between Winchester Road and the I-215 junction. This project has stayed on budget and on schedule with an estimated completion of May of 2025. The pickleball courts, located at Ronald Reagan Sports Park. This $3.7 million project is a 17-court destination for tournaments and recreation. The pickleball courts celebrated its grand opening in February 2025. Construction on the I-15 Congestion Relief Project, a $9.2 million auxiliary lane between Temecula Parkway and Rancho California Road, was completed in October 2024. Additionally, Caltrans will be working on a $56 million project to add the remaining 3 auxiliary lanes. The dog park renovation, a $1.2 million project located at Mike Nagar Park, has been completed. The ribbon cutting was held on July 30th, 2024. I'd like to turn the presentation over to our Director of Finance, Jennifer Hennessy, who will discuss the city's debt liability paydown status.
Thank you, Paul. So in Ward's presentation, he alluded to this a little bit earlier where we saw that decrease in our fund balance and said that that was deliberate. So that was part of a strategic pay down of the city's debt and unfunded liabilities. So back in December of 2022, the council approved this strategy, adopted it into our budget policies, and the goal of the debt pay down is to become debt-free within 7 years. In the first year, we paid off both of the facility loans that the city had on this building, the Civic Center, at $12.6 million. And the Margarita Recreation Center, we had a facility loan of a little over $5 million. Both of those were paid off, and started paying additional payments to CalPERS to pay down the city's unfunded pension liability. And then in year 2, we paid down OPEB, which stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. That's also known as retiree health. So for those eligible employees that receive that benefit, we had an unfunded liability of $3.2 million, and that was paid off in fiscal year 23-24. We paid another $14.5 million towards the pension liability. We recently just paid another $7.9 million towards the pension liability. So all of this goes towards paying down the city's debt, reducing millions of dollars in interest, as you can see in the bottom, the green highlighted line there. The pension liability alone, by paying it down early, we will save over $30 million in interest costs. And additionally, and more immediately benefiting, is the annual budgetary savings, which is shown in the second to the last column on the right. And that's the amount of operating savings that we will incur each year by paying off these debts early. This is an illustration of the cash flow. So the green line shows the amounts that we actually have paid and expect to pay under this new strategy. The black, and then what turns into orange, is the required payment from CalPERS. So this relates to our pension unfunded liability. So according to CalPERS, our required payments for this year are about $5.6 million for 24. Well, I think that's 25-26, and we paid $10 million. And then by the time we hit fiscal year 29-30, our payment goes down to 0. But had we not accelerated these payments, we'd be paying nearly $7 million a year, and then that tapers down. But it would be fiscal year 44-45 until we got down to almost 0. So by accelerating the payments, we save our annual contribution rates, our annual payments to CalPERS, and those savings can go back into the general fund. Okay, any questions on the financials before we jump into doing a little survey?
Yes, just a question about sales tax and property tax. What percentage of the regular sales tax and our property tax actually comes to the city?
So the sales tax The current sales tax rate is 8.75, I believe, in the city. City of Temecula gets 2% of that.
So we,
1% is for Measure S, and the other percent is what's distributed to all cities under what's called the Bradley-Burns Sales Tax Act. So the state gets the majority of that base rate, and then a portion goes to the counties, and then a portion goes to the cities.
so we're getting what, less than 20% or 25%, less than that?
Yeah, we get 2 cents out of the 8.75 cents that are paid on every dollar. Oh, and then property tax. So property tax, we really get, in the end, it's distributed mostly to the county, to schools, special districts, and then to cities. Our city gets about 5.4% of a property tax dollar that's paid. So for every dollar that's paid, we only get 5.4 cents. It's a pretty small amount.
Yeah. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions?
I just have one question. What is a pension liability?
So we are a CalPERS agency, which means that we receive pensions when we retire. It's a defined benefit type of pension, so we pay in each year. CalPERS develops, through using actuarial assumptions, develops the cost of what that pension's going to be. If there's any variance from those assumptions, so one of the big one is that CalPERS believes that they're going to earn 7%, let's say, on their investments. If they earn below 7%, then that brings down the overall value of the pension, and the employers have to make up the difference. So that becomes an unfunded liability. So that accumulates year over year over year, and our unfunded liability at one point was around 60 million, and so we're paying that down so that when employees do retire, that it's fully funded and there isn't a risk of it not being funded. So it's very technical, it's kind of complicated, but in essence, that's kind of what it is. Did that make sense? Sort of? Okay.
Any other questions for Jennifer? No? Okay.
Okay, so every 4 or 5 years or so, the city does what's called a community satisfaction survey. The last one we did was in 2021, and our city manager's office is getting ready and preparing with a consultant to do another one of these surveys to the community. They're a statistically valid survey, so a surveying company handles it, and they call and reach out to enough citizens to make it a statistically valid for a city our size. And we've done these over the course, well, ever since the early 2000s. And in 2001, the main question that we sort of, it's kind of our barometer of how well the community feels that the city is doing as providing city services. So the general question is, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the job that the city of Temecula is doing in providing services? Back in 2001, there was 92% were either very satisfied or somewhat satisfied. That stayed pretty constant in the surveys that were done in 2007 and then in 2012. And then there was another one done in 2014. It jumped up to 93%. And then there was one, the last survey was done during COVID times, and that dropped to 83%. The surveyor believes, a lot of it had to do with just the sentiment of the population during COVID. So we're due for another one. So what we wanted to do is give you a preview of what the survey might be. Everyone is encouraged to participate. So it is done either through an app on the phone, or for the commissioners, you can just simply click the PC button on your microphones there, and a link will pop up to the survey. For those in the audience or staff, if they want to scan the QR code, and they can participate as well. Obviously, this is not a statistically valid survey, it's just more for fun. Our assistant city attorney is laughing, just going, thank God. So we have about, I think, 6 questions for you or so. So the first one is, how would you rate the overall quality of life in Temecula? And as respondents submit their answers. It shows in the upper right how many have answered. There's been 3 so far. So we'll give it a couple minutes here for everyone to reply. Is anybody having technical difficulties finding the survey? You're all good? Okay. Okay. So we got 4. Don't know how to do it?
My
Is it
screen-
showing up?
My screen looks different than everybody else's, so I'm not sure. Oh, that would be why. Okay. Put it on.
Okay.
Put your mouse on here, maybe. Is it making it? Mouse is dead, okay. The mouse is dead. Okay.
Okay. Well, we got 5. Oh, now we got 6. Any more? All right, well, we're at 83%. Excellent. Oh, here we go, some more. Very poor, 14%. 7 respondents. Okay. So let's move on to question number 2. So this is the one that I showed the bar charts from the previous survey. So generally speaking, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the job the city is doing to provide city services? Okay. So about 80% satisfied on that one. Oh, dropping down, dropping down. Oh my, all over the place. All right. 89%, we'll stop there. We'll go there. All righty, number 3. What are the names of 1 or 2 stores that you would like to see come to Temecula? Mhm. Okay, anyone else? So Whole Foods is definitely makes it on this list each time we ask it. The last time this was asked for the community survey, we had Texas Roadhouse, which is coming, Cheesecake Factory, Trader Joe's. So a lot of them have come to town since we've done the last survey. So that's kind of, it's good information for our economic development team. Okay. Next question. Generally speaking, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the city's efforts to improve traffic circulation by improving roads and intersections, implementing traffic calming measures, timing traffic signals? Okay. All right, kind of all over the map. Oh, wow. Okay, mixed reviews. All right, next question. What are 1 or 2 things that you like most about living in the city of Temecula? And as we do this survey amongst all the different boards and commissions, we will be compiling the results and sharing that with the city council during the budget workshop in May. So, okay. Good answers, okay. Oh, I'll wait. Okay, so similar question next, kind of the opposite. one or two things you like least about living in the city? Pretty consistent. Yep. All right, well, not a surprise, but traffic seems to be the number one in all the surveys we've done, as well as the community-wide survey. But I know we're working on that, so, okay. If you could attend one signature event each year, which one would you attend? All right, this one's been pretty consistent too. Everybody loves the Christmas parade, for sure, and the Rod Run. All right, I think that is all of the questions. So again, we will compile the answers. Again, this was just kind of a preview, but we'll compile the answers and share them with the council when we report back during the budget workshop. So any other questions tonight for us regarding the survey or any of the financials?
Any questions for my colleagues? No? Thank you.
All right.
That was fun to
Thank you.
have the engagement part. Thank you for all your work, all of you. Thank you
you.
so much. Okay. We will start with our public hearing. Any person may submit written comments to the commission before a public hearing or may appear and be heard in support of or in opposition to the approval of the projects at the time of the hearing. If you challenge any of the projects in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the commission secretary at or prior to the public hearing. For public hearings, each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Public comments may be made in person at the meeting by submitting a speaker card to the commission secretary or by submitting an email to be included into the record. Email comments must be submitted to planningcommission@temeculaca.gov. Email comments on all matters, including those not on the agenda, must be received prior to the time the item is called for public comments. Any person dissatisfied with the decision of the commission may file an appeal of the commission's decision. Said appeal must be filed within 15 calendar days after service of written notice of the decision. The appeal must be filed on the appropriate Community Development Department form and be accompanied by the appropriate filing fee. All public participation is governed by the council policy regarding public participation at meetings adopted by resolution number 2021-54. And this is number 3, planning application number PA 23-0497, a tentative tract map 3AA13 to subdivide 2 existing parcels into 9 parcels on 11.4 acres located on the south side of Paba Road, approximately 600 feet east of Showalter Road. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you stated, this is planning application PA 230497, tentative tract map number 3813, also known as Parker Ridge. So also, as you stated, it's a tentative tract map to subdivide 2 existing parcels into 9 parcels on 11.4 acres. This is the project location. It's located on the south side of Paba Road, approximately 600 feet east of Showalter Road. This also shows it's in proximity to where it is in the city, across the street from the Ronald H. Roberts Library. A little bit of analysis. It is in the low-density residential zone. The density allowed is 0.5 to 2.9 dwelling units per acre, and it's proposed at 1.27 dwelling units per acre. So the lot sizes, the minimum required by the general plan is 1.0 acre. The minimum proposed is 1 acre. The average is 1.27 acres. This is the track map. Those are the lots. And this is the access that is off of Pava Road. It will be a private street. So the Chaparral area, the general plan designates the Chaparral area within the city of Temecula. So this is the city of Temecula, this is the I-15, Temecula Parkway, Butterfield Stage Road, Winchester Road, and then kind of right in the middle is the Chaparral area. As we zoom into it, you have Inez Road, Santiago, Margarita, and Pava, and then right in the middle you have the project site. So what's the Chaparral area? So projects within this area shall adhere to the following development standards. All lots within this project shall have a minimum lot size of 1.0 acre. If it was also located on Santiago Road, there's a 1.75 minimum acre requirement there. However, this project's not. I just want to let you know that there are different lot sizes within the area requirements. So graded slopes shall not exceed 2:1. Finished slopes should be contoured with landform grading rather than a formal engineered look. And retaining walls are discouraged to the greatest extent possible, particularly between a structure and the public view. So this project does deal with no net loss. So the housing element projections are on the first APN is 3 above moderate income units. On the second APN is 10 above moderate income units. This project proposes 9 above moderate income units, which means there's a shortfall of 4 units. However, the housing element has identified a surplus of 851 above moderate income units, which means the shortfall of those 4 units can be accommodated by the surplus. So the project with the shortfall is still consistent with the general plan, and the proposed density is consistent with the low density residential zoning. In terms of environmental, this is categorically exempt for section 15183 with projects that are consistent with the general plan, and a section 15183 compliance memorandum was prepared and included in the staff report. So what does a 15183 mean? So the proposed project is consistent with the 2005 general plan update EIR, and because the proposed project would not result in any new or more severe impacts to the environment beyond what was previously evaluated and disclosed as part of that EIR, no additional environmental review is required for the proposed project beyond the analysis and conclusions provided in that analysis. With that, staff does recommend the Planning Commission approve PA 230497, subject to the conditions of approval. That concludes my report. The applicant owner is here, and he is also in agreement with all the conditions of approval.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have any questions of staff right now? Starting down here, Bob?
What is the slope of the road?
Looks like 3.1, and then going down to 13.3 as you go down.
Okay. So it's a fairly low grade then, so, okay.
Correct.
Yeah. The shortage for basically the arena requirements that we have, does that acreage get taken out of the surplus acreage?
The surplus units, yes. So the 851 units would go to 847 units.
Right, but does that affect the acreage?
Of the property?
Of the other
No.
properties now, okay. That's all I have.
Gary?
Yeah, Scott, on the tract map, I was caught by the word septic pit. And then I was confused because I couldn't see anything on there, and I was somewhat surprised that there'd be septic in the middle of the city these days and age. But is it just on there as a mistake, and there's not actually any septic tanks involved in this project?
I defer to Public Works on that question.
Based on the project, there are certain areas that have the septic proposed on it, and that has been confirmed, that has been reviewed with environmental health with Riverside County.
Okay, I was just surprised that we would
Yeah.
still be using septics in
No,
the middle
that's
of,
yeah, that's true. I think based on the topography
Yeah.
of this land.
That would have to be the reason.
Yeah.
Fernando?
Yeah, I have two questions. One of the questions is, could you give me an example of a street that's like a 13% slope?
Honestly, not off the top of my head, I could not.
Just so I could understand, how the slope is. And then another question is, why is like the parcel, what's the intention of the parcel cutting in between, a street cutting in between the parcel?
So it's a private street within an easement. So as a private street, you can bisect the lots. And the lot acreage that's within that easement counts towards the acreage of the lot.
Okay. And then my last question is, what's the original design of, or how is it originally subdivided right now?
Excuse me?
How is it subdivided right now? What's the existing parcel map?
So the existing would be, I don't have it with me, but I can show you. So, and Bill can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it goes like this, and that's one. And then the other one's on the other side.
Oh, and there's just some kind of easement that goes from one
Actually,
parcel to the other?
Actually, the parcel on the right is currently a landlocked parcel.
Okay. That's it.
Mark?
Just to confirm with Works, did you say, I want to be sure I understood that all of the lots are going to be septic and septic tank, leach field arrangements, is that right?
No, not all of them. There is the ones in the front where you can see, on the site, on the map, you can see that there's a proposed sewer lateral to the front.
I'm sorry, I do see that. Okay. Then I'll probably have a couple of questions of the applicant.
Any other questions for Scott? Nobody? Okay. I will go ahead and open the public hearing, and we'll have the applicant come up first, please. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Bill Parker. I am the property owner and also a resident in Temecula. Raised my family here. I've been a resident in Temecula for 17 years. So my kids go to school here and very familiar with the city. So as Scott said, this is 2 APNs, and it is, this map divides it into 9 lots. It is a private road. A couple of things I'll address that you guys had questions on. Lot 1 is on sewer and will connect in Paba Road. The other lots will be split between septic pits and leach field. We based that based on the environmental testing that we did on each lot, what the perk rate was and what best fit for that lot. So it is, and we mentioned it's private road. So any other questions?
I just say thank you for being here tonight. Just want to get a better understanding of what the ultimate plan is for these parcels. Do you intend to parcel them out or develop them? What are your plans for them?
What are the plans for the 9 parcels? I don't know. We'll see. One of them might be to live in. I don't know. The boss is in the audience, so we'll talk with her and see. But, these will be semi-custom estate lots. Everything's got a half-acre pad, a 1-acre lot. As you get down into the bottom right corner, those are a little bit bigger lots down there. But, I've owned this land for 10 years, so we have researched every possible angle to do this. So this is the best use of the land, in my opinion.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. So there's so this is the best way to cut these lots into 9 by creating the street right down the middle?
It is, you asked, I think you asked a question earlier, or maybe you did, Commissioner Hagel, about give me an example of a 13% grade. Just look at the two streets to the right in the community right next to it. Those are 12 and 13% grade streets, and that's really where the civil engineer and I came up with the design for those streets. For these two parcels, because the second parcel, as you can see on the map in front of you, lots 5 through 9 are landlocked. In my opinion, when we evaluated, this is the only option for a private road through this. And that's really governed by some of the chaparral requirements, sloping, 2-to-1 slopes, no retaining walls, just to get the best use of the lot, and then bringing a private road in.
Are you also gonna create some type of pad or?
Building
like
pad?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the grading plan that will get submitted here. So all the building pads are a half acre.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay, do we have any public comments?
I have one request to speak. Sue Capelin.
And just real quick, while she's coming up to the podium, we did receive one comment letter that was placed in front of you for you to read, that was received via email earlier this week.
Okay. Thank you, evening commissioners, and thank you, Temecula, for showing up tonight. My husband and I and our family's been in Temecula on that Calle Ventura Street for 20 years. And we happen to own the property right at the tail end, just before the series of homes that are proposed there. And I have a couple questions and a couple concerns that I'd like to bring up to the committee. First of all, I do understand that there have been environmental tests, but has there been the Crotch's bumblebee test in the habitat and the sage, for sage plants and flowering plants? We just want to be sure that all that environment is cared for. Do you know if that has been current? The other question I have is in regard to the safety of Paba Road. I don't know if you've been traveling on that road much, but we've lived on it, and the vehicles are very fast. And we have a traffic light between the fire station and Calle Ventura, our street, and you cannot turn right. You have to be very careful on that street because of the safety, the kids, the schools, the library, etc. So we just want to be sure that there's been an incident report done, that the review has been complete, and that everything has been considered regarding schools and the library and the public, Ronald Reagan Park, etc. Has cross-traffic been considered in the study? Are you sure that the street would not present a substantial increased hazard due to dangerous intersection? Traffic. The traffic on Yanez has increased a lot by the apartment complexes that have been put in by the duck pond. And of course, it's really caused a big jam coming up Temecula from Paba Road to Yanez at traffic times, but throughout the entire day. We have a light right there on Calle Ventura, and it seems to make it very dangerous to get on Paba Road sometimes. So my question is there going to be a traffic light or a stop sign to enter Paba Road? The incline, in order to get up the incline on Paba Road to come to our street, you have to really speed up to get up there. So then what's going to happen when cars stop? Is it a stop sign? What's going to happen to traffic as it approaches that street and our street? Okay. I guess we don't understand why Santiago was not considered, because it's not a busy street. So that seems to be something that the community, our street, would like to know, that Paba Road is very busy. It's a very big community street with schools, et cetera, so Santiago doesn't have that. So it seems like it would be more private for Santiago to be in view of these new properties. The view and landscape has potential to decrease our property value. Our value is because of our view, and there are going to be 3 or 4 houses put right in front of our view. So that's a question for us, and it's a concern, and we want to know if there's been an approved 20-foot setback of structure and no vegetation for, that's over 6 feet high. I understand the size of the lot now, but how about the drainage? What's going to happen? There's a drainage right in front of our property that comes down. Is there plan for drainage? How is that going to work? And the homeowners, of course, are concerned about that. How about utilities? Is that going to affect our streets and the library and all that? How is that going to play in part to tearing the road up, et cetera? And then, of course, our concern, our family's concern is that of all the dust and all the dirt that's going to come into our property, our pool, our home, that we're going to be responsible to maintain. And the streets. Paba Road is a street that needs to be repaired a lot because of traffic. And it's not. And so potholes, I mean, we've had 2 flat tires due to potholes, and traffic, I know the speed limit is 45, but usually it's at least 55 on that street. And so we just want to make sure that the city considers the maintenance of that street. And then is there going to be a homeowners department where, like, we are Sawyer Mills, so we pay an assessment for that. And so we want to be sure that that is cared for in the city's determination. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come. Appreciate that.
I have a question for her. What's your
We
address?
don't-
Okay.
we don't- Yeah. You're good, thank you. Okay, any other public comments?
No other requests to speak for this item.
Okay, and I know with the one letter we received, and maybe when the applicant comes back up for rebuttal, he can respond to this, or we can have Nick respond to this. Nick, right? Yes. His concern was, he was in favor of the project, but one of the things that he was wondering is if that we were going to require the homes that are built on these lots to have fire-resistant building materials and design. That was a question from the letter that was sent, somebody that could not be here tonight. So we'll go ahead and have the applicant come back up, and maybe you can answer some of those questions from our comment.
Sure, I'll do my best. I didn't capture all of them, but so a couple things as far as traffic on Paba Road. The road to the right is Brighton Ridge. That is also a private road that intersects into Paba. There's no light there. It's a stop sign. Normal traffic rules apply. It's the streets that are the second and the third street over in that community that there is a traffic light, and that community is double the size of this. So there's 30 homes in that community. This is 9 homes. So, and a couple other notes. As far as drainage goes, yes, we're going to adhere to water quality management standards. Each of these lots will treat their own water quality as far as drainage on site. Valerie and Ron have made sure of that. And then the street is treated in an infiltration trench. So, water and discharge and drainage is fully addressed in the tentative map. For environmental constraints, there is a dry creek that runs through the middle, just to the south of these. So, intersecting into Paba Road it's not feasible. I don't know how else to say it. That would never happen.
Santiago? Are you saying?
Correct. I'm sorry, Santiago. Yeah.
Okay.
So just south of it, crossing that dry creek, which is, as you guys know, is governed Army Corps and Fish and Wildlife and every other agency. So that would never happen going south for these lots. And the way the grading plan is designed for the slopes, we are exceeding the setback from that dry creek. So we didn't design with the minimum setback in mind. We designed for the best constructability of these. And then to address the letter, we have not started a product review yet on these for the home designs here. I completely concur with what the letter said as far as, fire standards. So, we have some visions for what we'd like these homes to look like, but we haven't gotten into product review yet, so I can't really comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any comments, Nick, do you have any comments on traffic at all?
Yeah, I can address some of the traffic comments. In terms of your street coming onto Paba Road, we looked at line of sight, and line of sight is good. Based on the 45-mile-an-hour street, there needs to be 360 feet of line of sight. There's well over 500. I double-checked it again today. So there's no concern from 9 homes adding a lot of traffic to the roadway on Paba Road. On a side note, the traffic department is actually looking at Paba Road in terms of safety overall. We're looking at potential road diet in the future based on a paving project that the city has in our CIP budget. So overall on Paba Road, we are looking at that.
I have a few, I can also help answer a couple of those questions.
Where are you? Okay. I'm like.
That the neighbor had.
Great.
In terms of the view, there is a minimum 20-foot setback from the property line. So of course, they can go more than 20 feet, but it will be a minimum of 20 feet. And then you also had brought up the Santiago. Mr. Parker kind of answered that. A couple of years ago, he also submitted a pre-app for a larger map that went all the way down to Santiago. We held a community meeting at the library, and there must 200 people, 150 people, and
absolutely,
it was a hard no on Santiago ever being an access point, being paved through, even though it's on our general plan, or being an access point to any development. It was like an outcry of no at that community meeting, which made Mr. Parker essentially cancel that project and come back with this other project instead.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions for the applicant? Yes.
Just one briefly to clarify my understanding. So the infiltration trenches that I'm seeing on the lots, is that like a detention pond or something? Not pond, but basin? Is that what that is?
It is. So when the home is designed, the way it's positioned on there, we'll go through plan review with planning and engineering, and they'll take into account impervious and pervious surface on site, and that trench is going to be designed to basically manage water on site. So every property will have to manage their own water on site and can only discharge clean water. And then the street will be handled with the infiltration trench just on the south of that cul-de-sac.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and we didn't have any other public comments, correct, Stu?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions before we close the public hearing from my colleagues? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I will go ahead and close the public hearing for discussion this time. Before any kind of a motion, we'll have some discussion. We'll start on this end this time. Fernando?
It's a very interesting project because of the slope. I like that everything's going to be on a pad. That's good. And also I see that there's no other option of sewage here, so the septic, I think, is the only option in this point. Mostly though, but most of these houses are higher elevation than the proposal, so the proposed lots will be a little bit lower, so I think working with the grade is a great idea, and not moving grade much. So, and they're also not exporting a lot. They're cutting and filling. So that's it.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mark?
I'm satisfied with the answers I got.
Okay. Gary?
Yeah, when I first looked at this, I refreshed myself by my trips to the library, and coming out of the library, you can look down over that area once you get over the house. but you can see the other houses that are in that area on that side as well. I think this proposal, as far as the track map goes, is fine and dandy. I think eventually what comes on each of those lots will have to be, vetted through development standards and that type of thing, so the fire and all that will be taken care of automatically once those proposals come into community development for fleshing out. I immediately thought of the traffic too, because I think that PABA is a potential candidate for improvements, let's put it that way. And I called and said, what about the right-hand turn only on that? But was it even considered, or a traffic light? And the traffic analysis, I guess, for that area would show that it's not significant enough to justify a light or even a one-way turn out of there. So if the library can do it right across the street, I don't see a problem with this private road coming out and intersecting with PABA. Although I would like to see the future plans and how we're going to continue to improve the safety of that road. Yeah, the septic, thought we're past that in most places, but we're not, obviously, on this spot. So as long as everything complies with environmental regulations and permitting and that type of thing, then I think we're totally covered on that. So in short, I think this is a good plan for the project site.
Bob?
Pretty much what Gary's saying. I drive that road 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. I'm glad that we're going to be taking a look at the road.
So you're part of the traffic then, if you drive it that much?
Yeah, traffic's not horrible on it. I mean, there's definitely roads that are a lot worse. The condition of the road is a whole nother story, and I think, that's something that's going to be looked at, as well as striping, which I think can continue to slow down traffic. It's that slope down the hill where the traffic picks up. The grade, the 13% grade, there's a road up on the mountain behind us that's a 19% grade. And when you're hitting about a 16, 17% grade, that's when it gets really tough to get up there. A 19% grade, there are trucks that can't make it up the hill. And this is not anywhere near that, so I wouldn't see a real concern there. And just a reminder that this is a track map that's being proposed for approval, and that this will get flushed through a number of times with all the other requirements that the city and state have. And a reminder that a lot of the requirements that we have to deal with are state requirements, and a lot of them are pretty tough requirements. So.
Thank you. Any other comments from my colleagues? We're good? Well, I concur, and especially appreciate the comment that this is a tentative tract map, and there will be a lot more that needs to be done, but we're voting on this division and of these 2 parcels. And so if I have a motion at this time?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Watson and a second by Commissioner Solis. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carried. Thank you, and thank you. Okay. All right, planning application numbers PA 24-0023, a vesting tentative tract map 38908 for the creation of 113 single-family lots, 6 lots of which are designated as affordable, and 8 open space lots, and PA 24-0120, a home product review to allow for 3 unique detached single-family plans with 3 architectural styles consisting of 113 lots. The project is located on the southeast corner of Joseph Road and Rita Way, approximately 470 feet north of Nicholas Road. Scott?
Another one. So this is planning applications PA 240023 and 0120, which is now called Oak Creek. It's formerly been called Serafina. I think that's how most of the people that have been working on the project refer it to. The home product review for that, and then track map 38908. So PA 240023 is the track map, VTM 38908, for the creation of 113 single-family lots. 6 of those are designated as very low-income affordable, 8 open space lots, and then 240120, which is a home product review consisting of 3 unique plans with 3 architectural styles. Project location is here on your screen, generally located on the southeast corner of Joseph Road and Rito Way, approximately 470 feet north of Nicholas Road. So a little bit more, where is it in the region of Temecula? So you have Somers Bend over there on the right side of the screen. You got Nicholas Road that bisects this diagram. You have Joseph Road, and then you have the project site located in orange right there. So this project's unique is that it shares property line with another municipality. So this is the project site. This is the lot line between, or the city line between the county of Riverside and the city of Temecula. So you can see that it butts right up against 2 county land. So density bonus law, we've not brought a project forward in the city to date that deals with density bonus law, so we're going to go through that. So when most people think of density bonus and you don't think of density bonus law, you're thinking that applicants are using density bonus in order to get more units. So you're allowed to build 100 units by the zone, you use density bonus, you get 10, 20%, you can build 110 or 120, depending on what you're doing. That's not what's going on here, is they are using, the applicant is using density bonus law for waivers to development standards. So the 113 units that is being proposed, you're allowed to do that in that zoning district. They don't need to use density bonus, they don't need to upzone, they don't need to do any other type of application because it's already permitted to be built there. They're using it for the standards in order to be able to build that many lots based on our current development standards, and we'll get into that. So Temecula Municipal Code, Section 171020P7, and the California Government Code, Section 65915. What that does is it allows for projects that are utilizing density bonus law to also request unlimited waivers of development standards if those development standards have the effect of physically precluding the construction of a housing development that provides for 5% or more of the residential units as very low income affordable units. So development code waivers. The project is proposing 5.3% of the units as very low income affordable, and therefore they are entitled to unlimited waivers of development standards. So with that, the applicant has requested a waiver on the following development standards. Lot area, which is the size of the lot, frontage at the front property line, lot width at the front setback, lot depth, all yard setbacks, lot coverage, street tree landscaping, and front yard tree requirements. So they're allowed to do this because absent of these requested waivers, the project would not be able to achieve the 113 single-family homes, including the 6 affordable, due to the required size of the lots, which in this zone is 7,200 square feet, and setback requirements per the zoning district without the waivers. So again, waivers are allowed with density bonus law. In terms of the affordable housing, the applicant and the city of Temecula will enter into an affordable housing agreement. This ensures that the 6 units remain and are sold for owner occupancy at a cost affordable to households of very low income. So there's also a condition of approval, and it's in the agreement as well, that for every 20 market rate units that are completed and a certificate of occupancy issued, there shall be 1 affordable unit completed and a certificate of occupancy issued. So this ensures they do 20 homes, the city gets our 1 affordable. They can't go and build 110 or 107 and then do the 6 affordable at the end. So it goes in increments as the project gets developed. So then the term of the affordable unit commences on the date that that unit is first sold by the developer and terminates 45 years after that date. So what is very low income? I think everyone has different opinions or thoughts of what very low income means. I've received phone calls this week with varied opinions on what very low income means. So very low income is 31% to 50% of the local AMI or area median income. That is between $35,900 and $55,350 in a year at $17 an hour to $27 an hour. Now, What type of occupations is that? So that could be a grocery clerk, a warehouse worker, administrative assistant, a dental assistant, a paralegal, or maybe a planning technician that works here at City Hall. So affordable units. So again, there's 113 single-family homes. This shows the location of the 6 affordable units. They are equally distributed throughout the community, so you don't clump them all into one location. These 6 specific lot numbers are referenced in the conditions of approval that are in the regulatory agreement, and they will be in the CCNRs for the neighborhood. So these lots cannot change. Once it's affordable, it's going to be affordable for the 45 years. It's not lot 23 all of a sudden becomes lot 27, because it's in all of the recorded documents. So kind of getting back to the actual project now, it is located in the low-medium density residential district. It is property that is zoned for single-family residential homes. It's not zoned for commercial. It's not zoned for multifamily. So you are allowed 3.0 to 6.9 dwelling units per acre. The project proposes 6.43 dwelling units per acre, so it is within that range of density. It's 17.57 acres. There's 113 single-family homes. It is a gated community. It does contain private streets and private alleys. They are all 2-story homes. They're all between 1,750 square feet and 1,954 square feet. Amenities do include a pool spa area, picnic shelter, a barbecue area, and some passive open space. So on this slide, you can see the pool and spa area, a blow up the pool and spa area, and then the barbecue and picnic area that's next to the pool, and then the passive open space that's right in the middle of the spot by the mailboxes. In terms of project access, so here's the entrance to the project, and you will get your full movement right in, left out, left in, right in, and then you have a rendering of what the gates could possibly look like. And then the secondary access off here of John's Place is for emergency vehicle access only. So as part of this project, there will be a future signal that will be installed. It'll be installed here on Joseph Road and Nicholas. And this was based on a traffic study followed up by a fair share analysis that the applicant is responsible for 53.4% contribution to a future traffic signal. So prior to, the condition reads that prior to map recordation or a gradient permit issuance, whichever one comes first, the applicant shall pay $267,000 to the city to fulfill their fair share of that traffic signal. Now we can get into what are these homes actually going to look like. So there are 3 architectural styles with the project: Spanish, which is 37 single-family detached homes; cottage, which is 38 single-family detached homes; and Italiante, which is 38. So we can go through some street scenes. So along, you can see in this red, this will be the view along the private street on both sides of A Street. What's called A Street is the one that bisects the property. So along Rita Way, so the elevation of Rita Way is obviously a little bit lower, so you're only really going to see the tops of those residences. And then the street scene along Serafina, the grade comes up, so obviously you see this, you'll see the enhanced back elevations of all of these. And then along the internal private alley, I just chose this one. It could be any of these alleys. These are where the front of the homes will be located, so that would be a typical alley elevation style. So we do have enhanced elevations. So again, here's the project. All elevations located along Joseph Road, Rita Way, Serafina Road, John's Place, and the internal streets, which don't include the alleys, are enhanced. So also, elevations located in the areas that are visible to the public are also enhanced, which would be adjacent to the recreation areas or the open space. So that's A Street, so both sides of A Street. That's B Street. Both sides of B Street have the enhanced elevations. And then in all of these locations as well would be enhanced locations. If it's not in any of the red, it would be considered a standard elevation. So we're going to go through the elevations here of the 3 architectural styles. We're not going to show every single elevation, but we will show the varieties in terms of you're facing the street or if you're not facing the street. if you have an enhanced elevation versus not, just so you can see what the difference is between the two. So for a Plan 1 elevations with Spanish, indicative of the Spanish style, you do have S-tile roof, you do have ornamental ironwork, and you do have clay pipes. So that obviously is a front elevation that has an entrance on the front. So on this one, I want to show you what the interior side elevation is versus an enhanced side. So there's your standard, there's your enhanced, and then the red boxes show what is enhanced. So I'm moving on to the cottage, horizontal lap sliding, stone accents, outlookers with knee bracing, and then the standard and enhanced again. And then what I wanted to show you on this is this is something that I've noticed more and more that looks really good, and it's something that we get on all of when we do single family review, especially started out at Somers Bend, is on the front elevation you see they have the stone accents on the bottom. And then you see on the bottom left elevation how that wraps on the corner instead of just stopping. So when you turn the corner, it doesn't transition immediately back to stucco. Is just doing those wraps on these buildings. If you're out there and you're driving by and looking at it, it's these little things that really make a difference that other cities don't do. But it's not a standard, but it's something that we almost always get. So I just wanted to point that out. And then the final Plan 1, multi-paned windows, shutters, a hip roof, and then again your standard, the enhanced, and then the enhancements. Moving on to Plan 2, so this is a front elevation without an entry. So these would be the ones that are located along A Street or B Street where you're taking the side entry into your house. And then this, I want to show you also, this is your standard rear versus an enhanced rear. And obviously you can see the big difference between the standard and enhanced on the rear elevation. And then moving on to the cottage, same thing, no front entry, standard rear, then the enhanced rear, you get that lap-sided on the top as well. And you can't really see the difference on the bottom, or maybe you can on the screens, but it's the window brackets. It's not just one single pane, it's broken up. And then finally, the standard and the enhanced on here. You have the difference of color as well. Moving on to Plan 3. So all I wanted to show you guys on Plan 3 is what is a standard interior side elevation versus what it looks like if you're entering off of A Street or B Street. So as you're driving up A Street, you're going to see the good enhanced elevation, or if you're driving down B Street, you're going to see the enhanced elevation. So then on Plan 3 for the cottage, the standard versus the enhanced. And then finally, the standard versus the enhanced on this. So the pool, restrooms, and shower building, so it's very interior to the site. So it's just a standard building, has water fountains, has showers, and has restrooms. And then that shows the floor plan, pool equipment, bathroom, entry with shower areas, and then some more restrooms. So if you remember all the way back to the beginning, this also does include a track map. So again, there's 113 single-family lots. There are 8 open space lots. The minimum lot size is 2,100 square feet. The average lot size is 2,630 square feet. So for reference on this there's the Prado development that's under construction over at Harveston. Their minimum lot size is 2,000 square feet. Now they're in a specific plan. We did a specific plan amendment to allow lot sizes to go that small. However, the average lot size of this development is larger than the average lot size of Prado. So Prado's through 2 phases of construction. I've been out there, I've inspected the first 2 phases. They are small lots, but they're for the people that want a single-family home but don't want to have the yard maintenance. So these are the type of homes that we're missing in the city. We don't have some of the stuff, Harveston has it, some of the stuff in Prado, but other than that, we don't have this. And then again, to restate the density, the allowed is 3 to 6.9, and the proposed is the 6.43. Something else just to bring up in regards to the resolution is the project is identified on the city's housing element inventory, and the resolution for the project has been revised to address this. So we added a section about no net loss in there. So that will be revised. That will be the resolution that will ultimately be up for signature should the project be approved tonight. In terms of environmental, this is also exempt for section 15183 projects consistent with the general plan. The 15183 compliance memo was prepared by an environmental consultant, and then this is the same statement as before, but the proposed project is consistent with the 2005 general plan update EIR, and because the proposed project would not result in any new or more severe impacts to the environment beyond what was previously evaluated and disclosed as part of that EIR, no additional environmental review is required for the proposed project beyond the analysis and conclusions provided in section 15183 analysis. So with that, staff also recommends the Planning Commission approve PA 240023 and PA 240120, subject to the conditions of approval. On this project, we received 4 letters or comments earlier this week. Those were placed in front of you. The applicant and the architect is here, and so is the environmental consultant that prepared the 15183 analysis, and that concludes the staff report.
Thank you so much, Scott. Questions of staff at this time? We'll start with Bob.
Yeah, one of the things that hasn't been brought up so far is the elevation of the land. There are several different elevations, but there are parts of the land that is fairly low, and I would say from what I've seen is flood prone. What work is being done on that land for drainage purposes?
So I will let Public Works handle this, but they are bringing in, just for the elevation part, they will be bringing in fill as part when the project gets developed, but I will defer to Public Works for the rest of the question.
Right, so the land is located, areas of it is located in a flood zone. So they will be required to go through review with Riverside County Flood through their plans. And the areas that are located in the flood zone will need to be, per their guidelines of flood, to be elevated a minimum of a foot above. The pads need to be a foot above the base flood elevation. So it'll have to go through that review prior to any permit issuance. I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, that answers the question. Next question is going to be for you too.
Okay.
Is the road? There is a section of it that gets flooded, and was wondering if there's any change to the road elevation that is being proposed.
Based on our standards, they will be providing improvements along their property frontage, which is a requirement for us. Unfortunately, there is no nexus for them to require improvements along that property frontage. So we're unable to require that of them, of this project in particular. And also there are a few other items. I mean, there's environmental constraints there. Half of that Joseph Road is County of Riverside. So there is a lot of entities that would be involved in that as well.
Gary?
I'm not sure, Scott, if you have the answer, but since we're talking flood zone, would flood insurance then become a requirement for any future purchaser of any residence there?
I am not knowledgeable about flood zone insurance, but we could certainly ask the applicant.
All right, we'll do that when the applicant comes up. That's my only question now.
Okay, Mark?
Thank you. Just a couple. Back over to Works, if I may, please. What FEMA flood zone is that in? Is that like an AE or very high? What's the designation? If you know of.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Will the applicant, does it look like, though, the situation of those parcels will require like a conditional letter of map revision or something with FEMA?
Yes,
They
yes,
will
so
do a
that will
FLOMA?
be required, yes. So that is one of the conditions that's included, that they will require a certificate, a CLOMAR certificate, conditional letter of map revision.
Right.
So that will be required. In the instance, though, if it's not obtained at that time, then flood insurance is something that will be required,
Okay,
or that's an option.
thank you. And then just another one. Mr. Cooper, you mentioned that you brought up, is it Harveston, I think you said, by way of comparison?
The Prado project in Harveston, correct?
Exactly. The amount of development waivers that are being applied for here, was Harveston similar to that as well?
No, back in 2018, the applicant for Harveston submitted a general plan amendment, specific plan amendment, and then their development plans for all of that. So as part of the specific plan amendment for the residential overlay, they proposed the 2,000 square foot minimum, and that was well before the density bonus came into effect. So they set their own development standards.
Very good. And help me if I should ask you or the applicant, but I know we talked about the number or the range of the qualifications or the situation of a very low income person or household. How much do we know, or will the applicant know, or do you know what a very low income one of those 6 homes will sell for?
So I should have done this earlier, but we do have our housing analyst here.
All right.
So this is Heidi, and she can assist with that question.
Hi, Heidi.
Hello. So the report that's done every year by our consultant provides that kind of the sale value of these homes for 2024. These are now old numbers, right? The report comes in every year around this time, and it's issued in like May or June. But last year's was about $245,000 for a very low income for sale home.
I see. And how does that compare, if that's possible for the VLI homes in that area, what are the other home products? Do we know going to sell for, or is that a question for the applicant, developer?
They would be standard market rate.
Just market rate
So
houses.
when Prado opened their first phase, they were at 636. So that was a similar home price, but I mean, these will be built a year or two after that. So, but it'll be your standard market rate, Temecula area values.
And then maybe I'll throw one. I keep trying to stump the DJ, but I can't seem to stump you, Scott. You've got it all figured out. Does I may need to ask the applicant, but the enhancements that you showed, I mean, there's a fairly significant contrast between the enhanced and the unenhanced product or side of the house. Do we know if the builder or will the developer offer the enhancements to be continued on the other sides of the home as an option?
So this is a great example on why really the only locations you need the enhancements is where you're facing the public streets or the private public streets, is these homes are so close together. There's literally 8 feet between homes. You don't need to have enhanced elevations if your homes are this close compared to this close. It's not economically viable to have a 4-sided enhanced homes.
I meant more of just as an option. If the homeowner said,
Oh,
I want
the applicant can free willing offer whatever they want.
Right.
We're just setting the minimum.
the minimum standard.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Okay, Fernando.
No questions.
No questions? What? Okay, any other questions of staff at this time? And I think I've already asked Scott all my questions before the meeting, so I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing, and we'll invite the applicant up and architect.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Brian Taylor. I'm the project applicant representative, project manager for this subdivision. I would first want to thank staff for all your help over the last year and a half. You guys were great to work with. Fantastic team here. Over the last year and a half, we worked really hard to create a community that we felt would fit nicely within the city of Temecula and achieve everyone's goals. We did extensive bio testing during the CEQA process. We are going to be processing a CLOMAR and LOMAR for the floodplain. The CLOMAR will be reviewed by the city and by FEMA, and will approve the concept, so our design of bringing our site out of the floodplain and ensuring that we're not flooding any other properties that we don't own surrounding us. And then when we grade the site, We will then go back to FEMA with the as-built showing the final elevations, and they'll review, and at that point, they'll issue the LOMAR, and we'll be officially out of the floodplain at that point. If for whatever reason, which we're not conditioned to do this, there were closings in the floodplain before the LOMAR was issued, then flood insurance could be obtained for those homeowners. But that would be ongoing coordination and following the conditions of approval with engineering. We did extensively look at fire. We know that's a hot topic right now, as it rightfully is. And the fire department did review the project. And we do have, as you guys know, multiple access routes in the surrounding and exit routes in the surrounding community, including with the EVA gate. A resident could use their car to push that open if needed. That's what police department and fire department would do in an emergency as well. Parking, another thing that could get brought up or already has with comments. We did meet city standards. There will be an HOA, and then with the enhancements, as long as planning is okay with architectural changes, we don't mind adding the options for potential buyers to add those enhancements. I think that's a great idea, as long as planning is okay with that as well. But I'm here to answer any questions, any state density bonus questions or project questions in general.
Thank you. We're going to start down with Fernando this time.
No question.
Okay. Mark, you have questions for the applicant?
Not this time, thank you.
Not at this time. Okay. Gary?
I'm not sure if I understood the answer on flood insurance or not. So I know there was a lot of FEMA language and acronyms and all that stuff, but it's real simple is, will they be required to buy flood insurance for those houses that are in the flood zone?
No, because we're going to get the LOMAR for it, so no.
Okay, yeah. Thanks.
A couple questions. One, I think you kind of answered what I always like to see 2 points of entrance and exit, and I know you have the gate back there, and so that gate can be pushed either way if emergencies coming in or if a resident needs to get out. So if you had a fire, an earthquake, and you then have 2 ways to get out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, it will be a push bar, and there'll be probably 4 or 5 locks on it. Like fire department will have one, police will have them. I'm not sure Public Works will, but they will be. And those locks are supposed to break under pressure from a vehicle.
Okay.
Really meant for fire department.
Right.
Mainly.
Yeah. Second question: the main entrance and exit, where that comes out onto Joseph, I don't know if that's the low point on Joseph where it floods, but if
It's
it
not,
is, you may not be able to get cars in and out of there during a big rainstorm.
We are above that, and
You
so
are above
the
that.
crossing is actually below our property line. It does not front us. So.
Okay.
Okay, you kind of mentioned it as far as parking. I think in some of these letters that I've read, that's been a concern of a lack of parking in the planned track. Can you respond to that specifically?
We met city and state standard for parking. We provided as much as we could.
Which is how many?
I believe for state, it's either 1.5 or 2, maybe 2.5. I'm not sure exactly. And then for city, it's 2. But if I'm wrong,
So they did. It's a single-family home, detached home. So the requirement doesn't matter the size of the home or the lot or affordable or anything. It's 2 enclosed spaces, so they have 2 spaces in each garage. And then I actually counted this morning. They have 57 additional spaces located along A Street and these little parking alcoves. So they're exceeding what's required by our development code.
Okay.
As always, there's a balance between what we're providing for open space and parking and the total units. So we did analyze that and tried to add as much as we possibly could.
Well, you said there's an HOA, right?
Correct.
So they might limit what parking is on the streets too.
Correct, yeah.
You don't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you find your question? Yeah.
I had a question, just another one about, I understood, I see where all of the, we've enumerated all of the development standards that you're looking to request waivers for. One or two, though, that caught my eye, and I just wanted to ask you what the thinking was beyond the obvious, but it looks like you're applying for a waiver on street tree landscaping. Let's see, city requires at least one street tree at the front of each residential lot and in the street side yard. And it looks like you're proposing for one street tree per every 120 linear feet of street, I guess, frontage. Is that right?
We did put the trees wherever we could, but due to the density of the community, there was some locations where we couldn't. You know, for example, when you add in street lights and the dry utility transformers and various utility boxes, it just eats up a lot of space, and we try to take that all into consideration when we're going through these entitlements. Oftentimes people don't and then have to come back and ask for forgiveness later.
Right.
So that's the approach we took here, and we got in as many trees as we could, and that's where the waiver is coming from, because if we did have to add in more trees, it would impact our unit count.
Sure. Also, okay, so on the front yard tree requirements, that was street tree landscaping, but on the front yard, geez. Let's see. According to the Muni Code, front yard landscaping must include at least one 15-gallon size tree per lot, one 5-gallon size tree per lot, and you're requesting a waiver to do none of those. Is that correct? And just do drought-tolerant shrubs and ground cover. I just want to be sure I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, there is areas where we barely have any front yards at all. If we don't even have driveways, so it's difficult to fit in trees. We are able to fit in various shrubs and other landscaping, but trees do take up a lot of space and grow, which we just don't have the area in the front yard.
What's the shallowest front yard you have that we couldn't get a tree in there?
You know, I believe we have I think it's 2 or 3 feet driveways, and then the house sticks out a little bit from that, so I would say you have like 1.5 feet maybe. But
So I can follow up on this as well with Brian. We can put this up on the screen. So the first question was the 120 feet tree spacing. So that's along A Street and B Street, which are the main backbones. There's not many places where there's 120 feet spacing. I think there's one, and so that's why that became the waiver request. There are a lot of street trees along those. And then, as Brian was stated, a lot of the driveways are 3 and 5 feet, so it's an alley-loaded product, so there really isn't a front yard to these homes. Harveston, Heirloom, Harveston, Prado, all the Somers, Bend, small lot, they don't have any front yard street trees as well. It's just not feasible. So what we do is, in those spaces that are in between the garages, is we get as much landscaping as we can in there. So it's not always just drought tolerant, there's some other stuff. So we get whatever we can in those areas to make up for not being able to have street trees.
Very good, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? We're good? Okay, we will go to public comments.
Thank you.
Stu?
We have 4 requests to speak. First speaker, William Waring, followed by Charles Coulter.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight. I did send out an email to all of you guys got all the copies of it with some pictures attached. We've been talking about the flooded areas and so forth. I did attach one picture there which shows the street. This happens every time that it rains. The city comes out and blocks the street off. That means no one can go in or up off of Joseph. One of the items I put on my list was the traffic and evacuation side of it. I'm on a cul-de-sac. My home is at the front door of this new community that's proposed. I'm on Peyton Court. It's a cul-de-sac. If there is any traffic or anything on that road, we cannot leave that neighborhood off that street. By doing this, you're gonna add, let's say, 200 to 250 vehicles from this community onto that street every morning. Right now, we have everyone coming down that road from the north, where Hot Springs is, coming down through there. everyone taking their children to school at Chaparral High School. Yes, you guys have talked about putting a light at Nicholas and Joseph there. Great. That doesn't help the situation of traffic flow coming through plus 250 cars. It's a 2-lane road. So how are people going to get in and out of there in the morning and the afternoon? So that's a big piece of it there. The parking, you guys addressed that, talked about there's additional parking there. What we've seen in other communities around the area, and we've talked to people, is when those spots are filled up from events, parties, whatever it may be, those people overflow into the communities. Where are they going to go? To those first couple cul-de-sac streets right across the street from there. The city of Temecula has put a lot of effort and time into the new bike lane off of Nicholas. Why there is not a entranceway proposed on this to come in off of that? We do have that front way there that you can see up on the screen between the property they're proposing and Nicholas. There's plenty of space where we could have a road go through. In the past, developers have tried to do stuff on this land, and it has been turned down because of the flood area and the road access. That is a major concern, not only for me, but other people in the area in that southern portion of the community due to that entranceway. So that would be number one for me is there another way to get in and out of that community? Can they put another road in or out of there? The flooding, obviously, we've talked about that numerous times. And then, you know, what are we going to do about environmental ends of it? We've got a river that runs through there, trash and everything else that comes through that as well. I know that they've got exemptions due to different settings on this one, but what are we going to do about all that? The wildlife, the plants, the waterway there. Something has to be done, whether it's on the city side, the developer side. I'm not sure who owns that front section of the property anymore. Is that a city-owned piece now, or is that another developer owns that front portion on the Nicholas side? To me, it seems like if they do own it, they're trying to avoid that front section by cramming everything into the backside in order to avoid the waterway issues that we've had in the past. I appreciate your guys' time again. I know I have a few minutes left, but thank you, and thanks.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
So our next speaker is Charles Coulter, followed by Daniel Musey.
Hi, my name is Charles Coulter. I am a 25-year resident of Silverhawk. I moved to Temecula Valley, decided to move here in 1999. My wife worked for the school district. She's no longer there. My kids went to Nicholas Day, Chaparral. My kids have 5 college degrees between the two. My daughter taught in Temecula for 5 years. She moved to Arizona for affordable housing. I'm not against affordable housing. I'm against the design of this community. It needs some...
Can you speak into the mic, please?
I'm against the design of the community. It needs some work for some of the reasons that Bill stated. I lived in this community back in 2004. Most of the area where they want to build, particularly the area where they want to build their pool, was 100% flood zone. People came and ran their remote control boats in that lake as the water stood there for days. When it rains, there's a mud flow down Joseph Road. And since that road is shared by the county and the city, usually no one cleans it up. Sometimes I tweet, the city of Temecula says we're sorry, they come clean it up. Sometimes I call Mike Franklin at the county, they come clean it up. It's not very well maintained. Oddly enough, it recently was topped and paved. I think the county did it because they did our street at the same time. Sometimes it's hard to tell. I think the county did the whole street that time because I called Mike Franklin at the county and made fun that they made a pretty line when the county did their side of the street because the city doesn't really ever do anything. If you've been in Temecula a long time, you'll know that Joseph Road, like Kali Medusa, and I'm sure you guys know about Kali Medusa and Serafina, those are cut-throughs for the people that are coming down the east side of the city. We thought that traffic would be reduced there because of Butterfield, but because we have all these homes on Butterfield, people have gone back to using those cut-throughs. The Temecula Police Department uses Nicholas Road every day. They drive down that road through the mud, don't say anything about it themselves. They did that traffic study, and I encourage you guys to look at the data when it's done because I remember the lady sitting out there with clipboards sleeping in chairs in the middle of the afternoon. The gridlock problem is there during the school. When people are going commuting to schools, it is completely backed up, people getting out of that neighborhood. It gets even worse when the roads close during the flood. And a better design for this community, if they would have realigned the exit to the community to Finbrook Road. Finbrook Road is a straight line to General Kearney. General Kearney, you can go left back to Nicholas Valley or right to Willows, and Willows takes you to Hot Springs or back to Winchester. It also would allow people in that community going to Nicholas Valley to have a straight shot, and possibly you may end up having to put a stoplight there at some point because of the traffic going up and down. And that's a major, major concern, because when that road is closed, it's a flood hazard. And also, many of the homeowners on Peyton Court have been canceled because of fire insurance. I welcome those homes there because that's going to create a buffer, because when the winds come through Temecula that create fires, they come from that direction. And when they come from that direction through Nicholas Valley from Butterfield Stage, it comes right across the Edison High Lines. And in the last wind events that we were having, down by the station on the corner of Kali Medusa, there was an explosion and a fire, and you guys you may or may not know about it, but Edison and the fire department and the police were there to try and to prevent a disaster. So, and the other thing I just wanted to add is I want to remind everyone, there was a big builder that tried to build on that property a number of years ago, and that project was declined because that builder was not going to build a bridge, which they're supposed to. They were supposed to put a stoplight in, build a bridge, and the south side of Joseph Road is landscaped, or is improved for flood, and that flood zone goes all the way down behind Chaparral High School under the 15 down through Old Town Temecula. That improvement was done as a result of the floods in 1993. And if anybody remembers how bad those were, we haven't seen anything. That whole thing has never been tested, and it's going to start right there. The other thing that concerns me is you guys are currently doing improvements where you're building out Nicholas Road in that flood zone, improving that part of the river, but nothing's been done down here. The builder here said that that's not their property. It's not their property because the people that got declined before got smart enough to split it and ensure that they can skate these laws in California. But I don't think these laws
You have 30 seconds.
were designed to impact the safety of the people that live there. If there's a fire, if there's a flood and you can't get out, that the community does need some tweaking to be able to do that. The other thing is parking is a concern. We have the same issue in the Montego Bay community in Silverhawk, where they have over 150 parking lots and they have double car garages, and people still park out in the street in the communities. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Next speaker.
Next man, Daniel, and then that's followed by Paul Roos.
Hi, good evening. My name's Daniel Mucci, and thank you for this opportunity. Me coming here has been long overdue. And I'll tell you, I share the same concerns of the last two speakers that were here regarding the flood on Joseph, because I live right there. I experience it every time it rains, right? So let me back up a little bit. As I mentioned, it's long overdue for me to come here and speak to you, because you guys and ladies make decisions that impact the lives and the way of life and the quality of life of the citizens in the city of Temecula and in the unincorporated area of Riverside County. Now, true, I live on Finbrook Road, right, which is right there, right on the corner of Joseph and Finbrook. The reason why I'm here tonight, and specifically why I'm here tonight, is the traffic on Nicholas Road and the inability of the residents in the project there where the last two speakers spoke of. In the past, I have called the City of Temecula traffic engineers, spoken to a number of times. I have written documentation to Chuck Washington, who is the supervisor for that area. I have written documentation to the CHP and the Southwest Sheriff's Station of the traffic on Nicholas Road, speeding. It's like Pomona Raceway there during the day, and it's impossible, next to impossible, when all the parents are bringing their children in the morning at the Nicholas Elementary School. It's a constant flow in this whole perimeter of the area where these homes butt up against, these new projects homes. But I'm not here to speak negatively about the project. I'm here to bring to you the issues of the traffic congestion that these new homes are going to impact more so than they are right now. Right now, it's a mess. I don't expect, or I would imagine that no one here in the commission gets up at 8 o'clock in the morning and drives down to Nicholas Road, or comes over at 4:30, 3:30, 2:30 in the afternoon to see what happens there. I invite you to come over and put up a lawn chair in the park and watch what happens. I'm a retired firefighter, and I didn't know this happened. I lived on Finbrook a long time. But when I retired, I'm standing outside, and Finbrook Road is a 25-mile-an-hour limit, and cars are speeding. I realize that's not the city of Temecula, but they're coming off of Nicholas. It's impossible. So backing up a little bit, I've written documentation to everyone to do something about the speeding and the traffic by putting a stoplight at Joseph Road and Nicholas to slow the traffic down and give all the moms and dads the ability to safely make either a left or a right onto Nicholas. My opinion, it fell on deaf ears. From Chuck Washington to the CHP, to put someone there, and a motor officer. The sheriff is there periodically. I can't expect him to live there, right? 12 hours during the day to monitor traffic, but the sheriff is there, the motor officers. But what are they going to do? So I spoke earlier in the day to Scott. I had a phone conversation. He had told me, and I was glad to hear that
30 seconds.
money is appropriated for a stoplight, but I implore you to make sure that's the first thing that goes in there. I implore you, because if you don't, it's going to be a mess, more so than it is right now. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to come and address this. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Do we have any other speakers?
We have one more speaker, Paul Roos.
Welcome, Mr. Roos.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I hope you can hear me okay. My voice is a little croaky today. So I'm not going to be redundant and mention a lot of the things that were already mentioned, which are concerns of me. I am also a resident very close to the area. I live about a block away from the proposed new development. And the only little disagreement I would say is the traffic light, the traffic issue, the issue with the safety at the intersection of Joseph and Nicholas is kind of a separate issue from this project. This project is going to add a tremendous additional burden to the infrastructure in the area, but that's an existing problem that probably could have been fixed by a roundabout, honestly. I'm not going to get into an argument with the other engineers about traffic lights or roundabouts, but that would still slow everything down. But the previous gentleman mentioned the addition of 200 vehicles. I think that's extremely conservative. You're probably looking at 300 plus. And the parking issues, he's already mentioned. I'm not going to go into that. They will park on the outside streets. The flood. I just want to say something just pretty much real quick about the project would change the character of the neighborhood. If any of you have gone there and you kind of see, there isn't a lot of open space left. There's been a lot of building. So somebody here earlier in the evening had a really nice slideshow about the questions and the surveys for the city of Temecula. And if you noticed a little trend toward the later years of that survey, the satisfaction level's gone down. Why is that? Partly because of projects like this that maybe shouldn't have all been approved. I'm not saying they all shouldn't have been. Some of them should. They mentioned the one by Harveston. That's right next to the freeway. I don't think that significantly changed that area very much aesthetically. Ours will. That's a giant open area. I walk past there frequently. It's nice, and it is flood prone again, that road floods. So as long as these projects keep going forward like this, you're gonna see a continued decrease in satisfaction. So I think you should take that into consideration. Certainly, this project shouldn't go forward unless there are significant infrastructure improvements, not to mention the flooding and things of that nature. So I'm going to probably just cut it at that. I don't want to say everything that the other individuals have already said. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you for coming out. Any other speakers?
I have no more requests to speak.
Okay. We would like to bring the applicant back up for rebuttal. No? You don't want to come up? Just if you have any comments you want to make on the questions and concerns.
Yeah, I think that we worked closely with staff and we're following the applicable regulations and laws in place for the design of this project, and I think it will be a great fit in the end of the day. And if you have any questions for me, I'm available to answer.
Any other questions, the applicant? Go ahead.
Thank you. Briefly, in response to that common denominator that we're hearing from members of the public, in your opinion, or as you've looked at this thing, do you anticipate that your project will exacerbate, ameliorate, or have no effect on those flooding conditions that they're talking about?
I don't think it will have any effect because the way that stormwater in general is treated and how it will be eventually dispersed from the site, it will come out at the same, I think the term velocity and amount that it is today. And I could be misspeaking here a little bit because I'm not a civil engineer, but it certainly will be by what the rules and regulations are from the city and Riverside County Flood. So in my opinion, we are not making it any worse than the Joseph Road crossing already.
So no
is.
net improvement, no net worsening of the situation, just a neutral sort of effect. Is that
correct? Because we aren't doing any improvements to the crossing, so we wouldn't be, for example, raising it out of the flood, raising it so it wouldn't be flooded anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one more question. Okay. What's the difference in elevation from the lowest pad elevation from any single family lots to the lowest part of the street of Joseph? What's the difference in elevation?
From like Joseph on our frontage, or
A little bit from the intersection of Finbrook and also the elevation from Peyton.
Scott, do you have that? Sorry.
'Cause I see the elevation on the pad. There is some type elevation. I just wanted to know what the difference is because of the flooding.
I don't have that info on me right now. I can go look on my computer and get back to you, certainly.
Okay.
So you want to know from Joseph and Finbrook, that intersection,
Yeah,
and then to our lowest pad?
Yeah, to your lowest pad, because I see that there's some type of elevation, and I think that's how you are, you could say, improving the drainage in that area. Because you are proposing a big, I can't see the elevation of the street. I don't think that's on the plans.
So it looks like across from Peyton, there's a invert that's at 1134, and then the first lots on their site, right past the entry is at 1145. So that's already
So that's
10
a
feet right
substantial
there.
elevation.
But it's from an invert, so it's not at street level, but
Okay. And then do you have the elevation at Finbrook Road and Joseph?
Might be on the TTM or conceptual
yeah, that's what
grading,
I'm
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
The existing, not at where Finbrook is, but the existing at right when you get onto their site is 1136. And then their first pad is at 1145, so that's 9 more feet going up.
Right. Okay. That answers my question.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Nope? Okay.
Thank you.
I know before I close the public hearing, and as Scott said, we had 4 letters. I think 3 of those came and spoke also, correct? Or at least 2.
For sure, too.
Yeah, so, and we appreciate all of you coming out and speaking. We know that it takes time from your life, and we appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And at this time, Maricela, can we ask some questions of staff before we start our discussion? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So, one of the comments was about the infrastructure and the flooding, and I know it sounds like half of the road is in the county and half of the road is in the city. Is that correct, Joseph Street?
Correct.
So what is it that we can do as a city to help that situation?
It wouldn't be anything that a developer of, either this developer of this project or any other developer of this project would do, because it's an off-site improvement. So there's no, as Valerie was saying, there's no nexus for that. In terms of what the city would have to do in the future, we did discuss this a little bit. Just for instance, I know some of the other calls, I don't know if people are here tonight, some of the calls were requesting, a full-scale bridge. So a rough estimate on a full-scale bridge for that span is $7 to $10 million. So that would have to be a CIP project that also involves the coordination, as you said, of the county as well. So that would be the only way that would be taken care of at this time, because you're not going to see, one of the gentlemen spoke about the little small lot area just north of Nicholas.
Yeah.
That's never going to be developed. It's probably going to go in a tax sale or something down the road, or end up being a park. It'll be fine.
Who owns that lot? Or we don't know. It's not city-owned or county-owned? Privately owned? We don't know.
We don't know.
Okay. I think that was my main question, because I think, in my experience on Planning Commission, the city has done a great job of making sure that we have the infrastructure before projects are built. And so that was just some of my questions about that, and I think it's tricky when the county is also involved. So any other questions that we have of staff? Go ahead.
Who's responsible for the creek? Or I should say, is there multiple parties even responsible for the creek?
We can defer to Public Works on that one as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
I wanted to back up too, in regards to, as I mentioned before, there is no nexus to require the improvements along frontage that is not theirs, but when they do go through the review process with Riverside County with flood, they're going to have to do a study that's going to have to show the pre-development and post-development numbers, and it has to basically not increase. There's a certain criteria for it to go through. So in regards to this development, it won't necessarily change. We'll have to mitigate for those instances.
So is it only Riverside County Flood that controls that creek, or is there other agencies involved?
I believe there's environmental. I'm just aware of the Riverside County Flood.
So I can help out with that. So the property's owned, it's a Riverside County Flood Control District facility.
Okay.
But there are other jurisdictions that have responsibility. Those are waters of the state, so you have Army Corps, and then there are environmental permits that are required as well. But the property's owned by Flood Control.
So anything that would be done to affect that, we would have to go through the similar thing that we've done with, say, Murrieta Creek. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, so the property's in a flood zone. They're gonna bring in fill, raise the site, but they have to contain 100% of the stormwater on their site. So when they raise it, they'll do a CLOMAR, which is a letter of map revision that gets submitted to FEMA. They'll take a look at it. If it's out of the flood zone, then flood insurance is no longer required. But as part of that review, they'll take a look at the capacity within the creek
Right, yeah.
to make sure that that has not increased. So that'll be part of the review process.
Any other questions of
Yeah.
staff? Gary?
Yeah. Scott, is there the timeline on the signal installation? Because one of the speakers brought up the point about that really needs to be on the front end if a project goes forward. So do you have a schedule on that?
So we have discussed that internally as well, and I think our traffic engineer is better equipped to answer that one.
Yeah, that's one of the ones we are, we do need to get the money from them in order to install it. It would be a huge undertaking for the city to put in that other money. But we do have a traffic signal prioritization list that we have been looking at, and this is one of the ones we are looking at. We don't know if it's going to come in at the same time as before this project or when this project actually comes in. It's just something we're looking into at this point.
Okay. I would ask the question is if we could make that a condition of approval, is to have a traffic light put in at the coincidental with the beginning of the project.
Well, I think right now, they're not required to put in a traffic signal. Instead, they are putting in their fair share contribution. So ultimately, it's up to the city to install the traffic signals. So it wouldn't really be a condition on the project because they wouldn't have control as to when the city installs it. So they're only giving money towards the installation? Are you saying condition when?
So the money comes first.
I need to check to see when the money is currently coming. Is it before?
Yes, so, yes, their fair share contribution is required prior to map recordation or the grading permit, whichever one comes first.
So then we could.
It's like it's already there. So
Okay.
before grading permit, which means then it's up to the city to
Okay.
get the traffic signal
Well,
put
then,
in.
okay. I don't know if the rest of my colleagues agree, but I think that I would lean toward the direction that we encourage the city to make that position, if indeed we get to that point. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff at this time? Okay.
One other question. I'm not sure whether any of it works or but when we're talking about the sequence of things, especially as it relates to the grading plan, can a grading plan be issued with just a CLOMAR, with just a conditional letter of map revision, or do they have to wait for the letter of map revision? What's the relationship between those two sequentially, chronologically?
Sorry, let me, I think a CLOMAR has to be, oh gosh. Sorry. I think it's
Looks like it's prior to issuance of building permits.
I'm sorry,
Because
yep.
it's condition 78.
That's right.
Building and grading?
No, so grading permit can be issued, but prior to building permit issuance, the CLOMAR has to be submitted to, the FEMA-approved CLOMAR should be submitted to Public Works, so prior to them getting their building permits.
Okay, but I want to be clear on the distinction between building and grading. Can they get a grading permit while the conditional letter of map revision is pending? Or must that be granted first?
Based on the conditions that we have provided, then no. We don't need the CLOMAR, but we do need Riverside County flood clearance to move forward.
What if
So-
the conditional letter, just hypothetically, and I don't want to get into
Yeah.
a big one on this, but what if the conditional letter of map, the CLOMR, or ultimately the LOMR, letter of map revision, if that were somehow denied or rejected by FEMA, and they've begun grading?
Then those, I believe that those will have to require, they'll require the flood insurance, but we would, based on the conditions that we have written already, we would still need coordination with Riverside County Flood. But I don't know that we have anything clear in regards to that. I can check back and
That's
I'll
good.
get back to you.
I thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Gary?
Scott, I have one more question I forgot to ask earlier, but I'm not familiar with that area north of the project site. I went there today and I could get a feel for everything, but does Joseph go all the way north, allowing people to reach, say, Winchester or something else of that nature? There is a way out of there
So,
should...
yeah, so Joseph dead ends, but then you could go on Rita, and then you go on to Serafina, and Serafina takes you all the way up to Hot Springs. So that's,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Okay, and I closed the public hearing. I think I did, yes. All right, so now we will have some discussion before any kind of motion. And I'm going to start down here. Fernando.
I think overall I understand the exterior conditions and the drainage and the traffic. And I understand everyone's comments. I feel like the project is improving. Like Matt said, everything will be raised. And that's how this development will not incur any flooding, right? As of right now, that's all. That's all.
Okay, Mark?
No, thank you.
Okay. Bob?
Before I make any comments about my concerns, I just wanted to share that, and I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I have the same concerns about building and traffic and all the other issues that you do. I live here too and suffer the same things that you suffer. But I think there's something else that needs to be said, which is based upon, particularly in the last couple of years, the restrictions put on us about what we can and can't do is beyond your imagination. There is a lot of rights that property owners have, which in many cases, if it's a developer that owns it, that they have outright that basically a city has very little to say about. And this is certainly one of those kinds of situations. The other thing that makes this very difficult is we're dealing with county property and we're dealing with county flood control property. And that makes it a very messy thing to deal with. My biggest concern is the flooding issue on Joseph. I don't know if there's a whole lot more that we can do about it, at least at this time, but that would be a discussion I'd like to have. Because I know what Joseph is like. I've done a lot of research over the years. I was a traffic commissioner for 15 years and know what the issues were with Serafina and the cut through and all of that. So very familiar with that. And it doesn't take 5 inches of rain to come down in 24 hours for that road to flood. So it floods fairly easily. And I don't know whether, is it the creek that isn't able to absorb that, or what the issue is. I'm certainly not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but I'd love to be able to see more work done on evaluating that and seeing what could be done about Joseph. Perhaps even rather than going to a bridge, is there tunneling that could be done underneath Joseph, that would, you know, create wider pathways for the water to run. You know, what other alternatives are there? So anyway, that's my comment for now.
Gary? No, anything else? My turn. Yeah, anytime that we have the community come out and speak to us, you know, that's important to us. We want to hear from you, and you know, we have a job to do up here with the findings and what we've studied on this project. And as Bob was saying, my colleague, unfortunately, the state has brought down mandates allowing developers to do things that we maybe as a city wouldn't if we had our choice. And not saying that this applicant is, you know, wrong in this or anything, but just there's certain things that we don't have a choice about. But we have listened to your comments, and I don't live there, but I can try to understand what that's like. And I would just also agree with Bob, and if we can look at that situation with Joseph Road and that whole flood situation, if there's anything that we can do as a city to be able to do that. And also agreeing with Gary on the traffic signal, that would be really important for that traffic on Nicholas. Today I couldn't even get out there to almost to see the property because Nicholas is closed everywhere. So I don't live on the north end of town, but that must be frustrating. So anyway, this has been, you know, a tough project to look at and look at every part of it. And I just want you to know that we're doing our best at trying to do that. Any other comments?
One last one.
Okay.
I've thought about it. There is something on the plan that I have two concerns. One of it is more of a clarification of the entrance. It calls out for paving.
Okay. We kind of asked our questions of staff. Now we're discussing, but you still want to ask that of staff?
No, I'm discussing.
Oh, here, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to know how everyone felt about kind of being consistent with all the other developments and
what was the
just
question again?
Clarifying the paving
The
and
paving.
the entrance. And also in the plan, also block wall fencing. That most of the projects that have been developed in the last couple of years, they've all been block walls. I didn't see that on the plan. That's probably just two things that I saw.
Okay.
That I
Any
think.
comments from my colleagues on that?
I didn't really quite understand the question about the entrance, the pavement.
Oh, there's some notes on the site plan that just calls for enhanced paving. And I just wanted to maybe note that it should be maybe pavers in the entrance
Oh, okay.
and also the block wall. I think that's probably my only two concerns, because I know the concerns from the street. I mean, those improvements, there's really nothing we can do about that, but
Well, that's going to be gated there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So would anyone, are you wanting to put that into the motion? Or I'm not sure what you're wanting. You're just wanting to know what our
I think
opinion
wanted to
is.
discuss what everyone else
Discuss.
thought
Is it- okay.
about that being a change of the plan where
Any
I mean,
comments?
I'm not sure how much more you could do. I mean, it's going to be a gated, it's going to be gated there. I would assume that there's going to be some kind of a, you know, entrance wall and either gates that you go through or, you know, some method that you're going through. It is a private community, so.
I think he's talking about the pavers.
I think I'm talking about the paver entrance.
Oh, the pavers
Just to be
themselves.
clear, just to have more clarity on the site plan, to be, the pavers shall be, I mean, the paving shall be pavers, and then also the block walls, that instead of vinyl fencing, then it should all be block wall fencing. I think that's what I wanted to talk to everyone about. if that's a condition.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say about that, so.
So if I can just interject.
Yeah, please.
This is a state density bonus law project. So the city cannot at this stage change what they're proposing without obviously bringing the developer back up here to see if this is something they would agree to. We can't just impose additional conditions at this stage. If it's something that the commission would like to see, we bring them up and see if they'd want to do it, but we can't compel that of them. As was correctly noted by, both the Honorable Chair and Commissioner Hagel, when you have a state density bonus law project, the city has much less discretion than it does in other types of projects. So with these type of projects, you can only impose objective written standards and can only, and obviously have to waive a number of the development standards, which we've seen in what's proposed today. And so, if the city were to now say, you've got to do block walls instead of vinyl, we'd have to see if they agree, or, if the city tried to oppose that, they could say, well, we want to waive that. So that's really kind of the discussion that needs to be happening if that's what you want to see. We'd have to bring the applicant back up and open the public hearing again.
Yeah, so I think probably, at least my opinion would be, since it's that situation, that staff could talk to them if that's a possibility, but at this point, we can't impose it in a motion, and it's my opinion on it. Okay, is everybody okay with that?
I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think there's anything else we
All
can
right,
do.
any other discussion then? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve. I know there's two. I'm sorry, there's so much paper here, I don't have,
PA 24-006 and PA 24-0067.
correct, yeah.
That's actually the next
That's the
item.
wrong one. Sorry, we do have a lot going on. Okay, sorry, PA 24-0023 is the one.
And PA 24-0120.
Yes, those two.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. All right. Planning application numbers PA 24-0066 and PA 24-0067. Development plan and conditional use permit for a 143-unit senior apartment community built on 5.93 acres located on the east side of Winchester Road at the terminus of Rustic Glen Drive. And density bonus application and density bonus agreement. Scott, you are the man of the night.
Last one. So PA 24-0066 and 0067 is the Sage Senior Apartments. So again, as you already stated, the 24-0066 is the development plan to allow for the construction of a 143-unit senior apartment community. And the 0067 is a conditional use permit for parking, sport courts, and private recreational facilities uses associated with the senior apartment community. And then there's also the density bonus application and agreement. The project location is here on your screen. It's generally located on the east side of Winchester Road at the terminus of Rustic Glen Drive. We have another situation where we have multiple municipalities adjacent to each other. So here is the project site in blue. And then we have the city of Murrieta, the city of Temecula, and the county of Riverside all right next to each other. So this is a very unique parcel in the city. We may have one other parcel that's like this, I believe, where the land use and the zoning do not match up. So the general plan land use here on the left is neighborhood commercial and open space. And the zoning district is just neighborhood commercial. So what happens when this happens? So California Government Code Section 65860 states that in the event that a zoning ordinance becomes inconsistent with the general plan, and when a development application, in this case the development plan application, is received for a project that is consistent with the general plan, but inconsistent with the zoning, the city shall apply the general plan standards. So staff used the split general plan and land use of the neighborhood commercial and open space acting as the zoning designation. So what does this look like for the permits? So you have the neighborhood commercial. The senior apartment community building is located 100% only in the neighborhood commercial because you can't build residential structures in open space. So that's a permitted use. Then you have the open space, and that's where the parking, the sport courts, which contains the pickleball, and the private recreation facility, which contains the dog park, is located in the open space. That requires the conditional use permit. We have more density bonus. However, this time is actually density bonus that is more, I would say, normal. Like you're actually getting units. They're also getting a waiver, but they're getting the units with the density bonus. So the municipal code allows for 20 dwelling units to the acre maximum for senior housing in the neighborhood commercial zoning district. And California's government code section 65915 and the municipal code section 171020P allows for a senior housing project a 20% density bonus. So how does the math work out on that? Project 5.93 acres by the development code, 20 dwelling units per acre, is 119 units allowed. When you add in the density bonus of the 109 units that are allowed by the code, 20% density bonus, that's how we get to the 143 units that are allowed on the project. So the development code waiver. So again, this is what we just talked about in the previous project. Projects that utilize density bonus are also eligible for a waiver or waivers of development standards that with the additional density granted by density bonus would physically preclude the construction of the housing project. So this waiver request is the maximum building height in this area is 40 feet. They're requesting an increase to 54 feet 5 inches. What's interesting about this is the majority of the increase in the height over the 40 feet is all in the roof of the building and the construction because of the architecture that's been chosen for the building. There's no additional floor heights that's over the 40 feet. So the development code waiver. Total project site is 5.93 acres. The open space is 2.35 acres of that. As stated earlier, you cannot build housing in that open space, so they're already reducing the acreage that they can actually physically build in. On top of that, there's additional easements along Winchester. Those are easements that you also cannot build in, so we're taking more acreage out of it. So the property available for building is actually only 3.2 acres. Now again, they can use the total 5.93 acres towards their density, but the actual physical area on the site is roughly 3.2 acres. So with that limited land for the building makes it necessary to increase the height of the building in order to allow the 143 units. So, and then again, the waiver is allowed with density bonus law. There's also a regulatory agreement with this project between the city of Temecula and with the applicant. It ensures that the project remains as senior housing for persons 55 years age or older. It's required as the project is only permitted for the density bonus increase and development standard waiver due to the senior housing designation. So we need to protect ourselves, the city needs to protect ourselves against project gets built 6 years from now, an apartment market rate buyer comes in and buys it and turns it into non-senior housing. You wouldn't be able to build the project if it was just standard apartments. So it has to remain senior housing. So that's why we're doing the regulatory agreement. So also with this, there's no term limit on this, and it runs with the land throughout ownership changes. So analysis about the actual project. Again, 5.93 acres, 3 stories, 54 feet 5 inches in height with the height waiver, 143 senior housing units. There's 69 one-bedroom units from 672 to 772 square feet, 27 one-bedroom with den units, 928 to 1,050 square feet, 44 two-bedroom units, which is 960 to 1,143 square feet, and there's 3 three-bedroom units, which are 1,630 square feet. So the amenities at the project include a pool and spa area. In that area is a barbecue area, fire pits, bocce ball, and game lawns. There's the 2 pickleball courts, dog park, and then interior within the building, you have, among other things, you have billiards, yoga, fitness center, media room, or media lounge, and a craft room. In terms of parking, there's 101 parking spaces that are required per the development code. There's a requirement for 72 covered and 29 uncovered. The project is providing or proposed to provide 206 parking spaces, 91 covered and 115 uncovered. So we can walk around the site plan here. So there is emergency vehicle access that's on the southern part of the project site. And then that would be a ride in and a ride out of that. Up here, this is the main entrance to the project site. There will be a new traffic signal installed fully by the developer at this location. And this will allow for your full movements, your ride in, your ride out, and then the left out of the project and the left in if you're coming south on Winchester. Then the 3-story buildings here in blue in the middle of the project, and then within the building is that where the pool activity area is. Pickleball courts here on the north side, and then directly adjacent to that is the dog area. So what do these outdoor amenities look like? This is the courtyard interior of the building, so that's where your pool and spa, bocce ball, game lawns, fire pits, and barbecue areas are located. And then you have your dog area and pickleball courts, so 2 full-size pickleball courts, a dog agility equipment, a drinking fountain for both humans and dogs, a bench area, and then trees for the shade in the summer when it's going to be hot out there for the pups. So objective design standards, this is another first for the city. We established these in January of 2022. And why we did this is it's for use for multifamily or mixed-use projects that are not part of a specific plan or plan development overlay that contain design standards. So we have this book. The applicants can use it online or in person. You can do digital online. It makes it really easy for staff to work with it. So and what this does is it provides a clear set of architecture and site design requirements that are set up in a manner to facilitate efficient review and completion of a project. So within this book, it contains architectural design standards, include requirements for, but not limited to, architectural style, roof design, walls, and window design, decorative accents, and details, colors, and materials. So this is the front page of the book, of the standards, and this is, as you get into it, I chose this page because it's the American Rural, which the applicant has chosen to do in this style. So this is a typical design standards page in the book. This is a walls and windows design. And this is what the applicant submitted, and it's the applicant submittal package. So if you notice here, these are the required elements, and then you have an optional element where you can choose at least one of those. So then what the applicant did is they showed exactly the elements that they chose off that page. So we've actually done is we've reached out to the architecture firm for this project and asked if we can take their plans that they gave us to use as a future requirement for all other projects using the design standards, because this is exactly what we are looking for. We didn't ask for this, but it's exactly what they did, and it makes staff's review, it should make the planning commission's review a whole lot easier moving forward on these projects. So in terms of architecture, the American Rural architectural style was chosen, and that incorporates vertical and horizontal siding, neutral colors with contrasting accents, porches, gooseneck lighting, and medium to high-pitched roofs. The proposed style reflects Temecula's agricultural and ranching history and regional context. And with everything that the applicant has done, according to the design standards, the project meets the objective design standards for site and architectural, including American Rural design. So we can go through these elevations. So this would be the view if you're on Winchester Road looking at the project, and we have some renderings coming up here as well. This would be the view from the east of the project, so if you're over in the adjacent residential neighborhood across the creek. And then the view from the pickleball courts, and this contains the main entrance to the project as well, into the building. And then finally, the view if you're traveling north on Winchester Road. Then to take a look at a couple of the renderings here. So again, the view from Winchester Road if you're traveling south, and then if you're traveling north, and then two interior site views. So in terms of landscaping, 27.9% landscaping area is provided. There's a 25% landscape requirement in the zoning district. So some of those plant types that are provided include Marina strawberry trees, Australian willow, blue oak, Jerusalem sage, and hot lip sage. In terms of environmental, a mitigated negative declaration was prepared for this project, along with the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. And the M&D determined that the project impacts can be mitigated to levels considered less than significant for the following environmental factors, and those include biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, and tribal cultural resources. Staff does also recommend the Planning Commission approve PA 24-0066 and PA 24-0067, subject to the conditions of approval. We received one comment letter earlier this week that was provided to you guys for review. The applicant is here with his team, and the environmental consultant is here as well, and our housing analyst, as always, is here.
Thank you, Scott. And we'll have questions of staff. Bob, starting with Bob.
Can you put back the objective standards? So the required elements, we required all four of those, is that, or they got to select from that?
So the required elements are all four, and then below, and it changes for each. So like roof form, there could be 3 required elements and then 4 optional, and you have to choose
Right.
2 of those. So it just changes. I just used this as
Oh,
one example.
okay, so those are all the ones they chose out of what they had to choose from.
Right, so this shows
Okay.
what they, and on this one, they chose everything that was required and both optional elements.
Right.
And then they show exactly what it's gonna look like on the project.
Okay, that's it for now, so.
Okay. Okay, any questions down here for staff? Mark?
Just a couple real quick. Confirming though that the ultimate use of this is senior apartments exclusively, or does the developer have any designs or intentions of including assistive living features later?
It could only be for senior housing, according to the regulatory agreement.
Okay. And then in that same vein, to qualify for residency, it sounds as though at least one of the tenants is required to be 55, I think. Who's the next tenant? We're back. I love it.
Yeah.
Second time, all right.
Yeah. So the person who holds the lease or who will be renting the unit has to fill out a form. It's a city-created form that pretty much shows proof that they're 55 or older.
Okay. And then could additional residents be younger than 55? Could they be minor children, for instance?
Yeah, so that form has them list their information and then any other additional tenants that are living with them and their age.
Okay.
But as long as the main person on the lease is 55 or older, they're okay to live there and have theirs.
Okay. Does the project propose any deed or income restricted units, or is it all market?
It's all market rate.
And then there's something else I was going to ask you about. Oh, was there any requirement, did the project come up against any environmental mitigation requirements like coastal sage scrub or anything like NNGs or anything like that?
So this would be the perfect time for the environmental consultant.
What a great segue. I'm hitting for the circuit. That's great.
No concerns. No concerns with this project. Good evening, everybody. My name is Megan Karadimos with Kempley Horn, and we drafted the ISM&D for the project. As Scott alluded to earlier, there was mitigation for biological, cultural, geological, and tribal cultural resources. With regard to biological, there is mitigation for burrowing owl, pre-construction survey, for nesting bird surveys, as well as lease Bell's Vireo avoidance mitigation.
Okay. Are you having to purchase any or buy any mitigation credits for fauna?
No.
Or flora, rather, I meant to say?
No.
Okay.
It'll pay the MSHCP development fees, which all projects are required to pay.
Right.
But no specific mitigation with regard to paying any other fees.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, Fernando, questions of staff?
No question, for sure.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing, and let's go ahead and have the applicant come up.
Good evening, Chairperson, Commissioners. My name is Dustin Woomer. I work with Diamond West. We're a planning and engineering firm. We're working on the project, representing the applicant tonight. But the applicant is here, Wayne and Evan representing the applicant. We also have the architect, Aya, and Ivan from BMLA, the landscape architect. Scott was pretty thorough with his presentation. We're really here just to answer any questions you might have. We could get the proper team member there to help you out.
Okay. Any questions? We'll start with Bob.
I have a simple request, actually. As an advocate for good government and everything else, I'd be curious what your budget limit or your budget item would be for your dog park.
That's a great question that I am not prepared to answer. I don't know.
The reason why I'm asking is somewhat in jest, but we got a presentation earlier on the city's capital improvement project, and the city paid $1.2 million for a rehabbed dog park. I heard that tonight and I'm shocked. So I'm just curious if you could do a dog park for, you know, whatever your guess would be.
Anybody have a guess? It's definitely not 1.2 million. Yes.
Could you do it for less than 1.2 million? I'm pretty sure you could do it for less than 1.2, but maybe I'm wrong.
I would imagine much less, but I'd be happy maybe to, we can investigate a little more and go through Scott and let you know that number.
I'm wasting your time now, I'm sorry, but.
No worries.
The point is, I'm continually amazed at the amount of money that is spent for things that seems, you know, pretty high.
Yeah.
I get it, I get the whole thing with unions and everything else, but I'm just stunned sometimes when I see $1.2 million for a dog. I mean, what do you put in a dog park?
I think ours are pretty basic with some
Do they have air
grass, some
conditioning?
benches, a couple little piece of equipment.
And I don't,
sales.
that's fine, I won't put you on the spot anymore. And I don't want to offend any dog owners here. I'm all for the dog parks. My daughter has one and everything else as far as going there. But I just, you know, I'm concerned about how much money is spent, tax dollars, for these types of things. So that's all. Thank you very much for putting up with me.
All right, any other questions down here for the applicant? No?
I had one.
Okay.
I wonder if you could tell me a little about the developer's experience with this kind of project.
Sure. Wayne or so Willis Development is basically an exclusive. They've done dozens of similar type senior, mostly in the senior, you know, either assisted living or, you know, market rate type apartments,
Can the developer
all
join
over
us?
Southern California. Yeah.
Can you join us at the mic?
Wayne Naftel with Willis Development.
Welcome.
We currently have got communities in Thousand Oaks, Glendale, Tucson, Fresno. We're starting to develop more properties in Tennessee and in that general neighborhood.
So you're novices, you're saying?
We're not novices.
Yes, I'm
And we
being
also
facetious.
agree that dog parks and everything else is way too expensive.
Sounds like you got a wealth of experience with this. Good, thank you, that's what I was wondering.
No problem.
Okay, any other questions of the applicant? No? Do we have any speakers?
Have none.
We have none, okay. Any other questions for sure before I close the public hearing? All right. I'm going to close the public hearing and open it up to discussion.
I'll start off.
Okay.
I'm all for senior projects. We need more of them for every need in the city, so I think that's great. The density bonus situation in this case, I think, has worked out for everybody. The last one, I'm not so sure, but this one looks pretty good from that respect. The site is interesting, and especially with the environmental constraint on the open space requirement there. But everything seemed to work out pretty well. The design looks great as far as I'm concerned, and the need is definitely out there. I'm always pleased that on this commission, we have approved quite a few senior housing projects, and being a senior myself, nobody else, I'm sure, but I'm happy to see that because it's a whole different stage in life, and people, you know, sometimes are forgotten in that regard. So I think this is a good project, and I like everything about it so far.
Okay, Bob?
Yeah, I would agree with Gary that I think in this case, the density bonus matched very well along with the open space, that we ended up with more than twice the number of parking spaces that's required, and a lot of amenities that could be put there. So even though it kind of squished the building requirement to a smaller piece of land, you know, and you're building I think an extra story, I think it ended up working out just fine. And like you said, I think we need more senior housing. So I think that fits what we need perfectly, and I think it will do very well.
Okay, Fernando?
I agree. I think it's a really great looking project. It has great amenities, and I think the difference in grade really helps out. That doesn't look so tall. So great looking project.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I guess I'll echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I think it's a great project. I had a few questions about it. I feel like they were answered certainly to my satisfaction. I guess the only point I would make, and maybe, I hope I didn't misread this, Scott, but were there, it was a total of 10 EV installed stations for this. Is that correct? Charging stations?
Do you know off the top of your head? I can pull up the plans.
I may be wrong, but I guess if I'm right, I was hoping for something of this size and scale. Is it 10?
Can't hear you. Is it on?
There we go. Yeah, so half of the parking spaces, I believe, or more than half, will be EV ready. So as, you know, so the way the building codes work, it's going to meet all the building code requirements, but there is at least a large number of EV spaces that'll be day one, and then a vast majority will be basically EV ready, meaning all the power to the site will be designed to handle, you know, over half the spaces, and most of that will be actually conduited. But then over time, you can be able to add those as the demand, you know, warrants.
I see. Okay. So do we know, though, it's 10, right? 10 spaces that are EV installed?
No, actually, there are going to be. Hi, Erin Eckern here with Herbal Protector. Hi. No, there are going to be more. Right now, I think in the submittal, we've noted that there are going to be 11 that are going to have chargers with them, and then there are going to be 52 EV ready and 21 EV capable. However, I will note that since the time of this submission, I think the energy code has been revised, and so we will have more than this.
More EV installed or ready?
EV installed, we will have more, yes. And I do apologize, I don't have that number with
Not
me
at all.
right now.
Thank you for coming
more.
with that information. I
Yes.
appreciate it. Yeah, I like the project, and I feel good about it. Thank you.
Okay. So my only concern was, and I talked to Scott about this today, and I don't know that, you know, there's anything that can be done about it, but another light on Winchester to stop everybody while everybody's stopping anyway was my concern. So hopefully everything that's happening with French Valley will help things move along better. But there it is again, that traffic concern, right? I do think it's a nice project, and I like that staff wants to use it as an example. That's kind of cool. So, and I also want to say at the end of my comments, I want to thank Scott and his team and everybody that's worked on all of these projects tonight. Unbelievable. And we always like to hear from applicants who are appreciative of the team and working with them. So we appreciate that so much as a planning commission. I'll speak for my colleagues because I'm sure they agree. And I will go ahead and ask for a motion.
Did we close the public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, just
I
wanted to
did.
confirm. And then
I am so good at that. I did.
I thought you had, but then I saw the applicant come back up, so I just wanted to make sure. And just for the record, before you have the motion, there was an additional comment letter that did come in that was distributed to the Planning Commission in support of the project.
Right, right. I think Scott mentioned that, but he didn't mention that it was in support, I think. But yeah, it was in support. Okay.
All right, motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Solis and a second by Commissioner Watts. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carried. All right. I will go to commissioner reports. And we'll start on this end. Fernando.
Yes, well, we went to the conference up north. It was a really great conference. Talked about a lot of the new state laws that are coming in. We had a project before us.
More state laws?
Yes, more state laws. There's a lot of them. And I think within these next couple of months, we're going to start to see more projects come in.
Over 200 proposed
Yeah.
laws affecting housing.
So I think we only reviewed maybe 5 to 10. We got to meet other commissioners and other cities, and we discussed a lot of their projects and what are their challenges in their cities. And I think overall it was a really great weekend. It was great. We went a little far. When I came back, we couldn't land. So it took me extra long to get home.
You couldn't land? Why?
No, we got deviated to Palm Springs.
Oh, no.
It was so bad. But it was raining that weekend.
Oh.
But overall, I think it was a great event, besides me coming back.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
thank you to the city that took us. It was great.
Okay. Mark?
Briefly, Commissioner Hagel and I attended I attended my first subcommittee meeting tonight on the Muni Code update.
That'll be next.
Sorry.
On the subcommittee. Do you have any other?
Then I have absolutely nothing.
Okay.
It was a stretch.
Okay, Gary, anything for commissioner reports?
As with Commissioner Solis.
Your, Mike.
As with, like I said, I'm a senior. Like Commissioner Solis and Commissioner Hagel, I attended the Academy in Santa Rosa. And I personally would like to see a few more topics covered, but that's okay. And I think the real value to those meetings, and I do thank the city for sending us, is the interactions with other commissioners and discussing problems that are shared by both. And that, it's always personal interaction with somebody involved in the same thing is extremely valuable and beneficial for your viewpoint, I think. So as a whole, I could ask for more out of the meeting, but from what I gathered from being around so many people was very beneficial and helpful. And a little scary when you hear about all of the legislation that's being kicked around by our legislature in Sacramento. And I wish that we could somehow do a better job of explaining to the public, they're gone, should have done it earlier, but just how these things really work when the state comes down and passes a law, and then they ask the city to enforce it or implement it, and then they threaten, the state threatens the city if they don't do it, that they'll come after, for whatever reason these days, they seem to come after the cities for everything. So yeah, we're forced to change our municipal code to comply with the state law, which is expected, and that's what we do. But it's hard for people, I think, that don't deal with making a sausage of housing and everything. It's hard for them to understand how, as I describe it, we sit up here with handcuffs on because we're not allowed to make discretionary decisions. But I'm hoping that the public can understand that it's not something we willingly do as a commission.
Right.
So I just wanted to say that as far as my report.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, the conference was completely sold out. I did some questioning of the staff up there and got some calculations, and 20% of all the commissions in the state of California were represented. From our local area, the only two commissions that weren't represented was Murrieta and Lake Elsinore. And we got to meet Paris and Wildemar and, all of them. And I think I probably ended up speaking to somewhere between 50 and 60 commissioners. And the thing that really struck me was how different each city's problems are. Up there, housing is even a bigger problem than here, that 15% of all the cities, which a lot of them were up there, have not had their housing element approved. And there's some, there was quite a few cities that are never going to get it approved. I remember there was one city that was about 50 miles south of San Jose, a very small little town that required 1,500 homes, and they have zero space, and no one is interested in doing any infill projects. And they can't attract anybody because they don't have any transportation going up to San Jose. But because they didn't get their housing element approved, their grant that they were getting for the transportation was canceled. And so now they're into this, what do we do? And they're getting punished by not being able to do a lot of things that the city needs to do. There was a lot of talk about the redevelopment fund, of trying to get some kind of redevelopment fund back. I don't know how much traction that's gonna take. The other thing I was surprised about is that the state will have a surplus this year. Not a big one, but they will have a surplus. So
Really?
yeah, I was
I don't believe that.
$926 million. But given what we heard last year was like $1.5 billion negative number, and now somewhat of a surplus. So
It's hard to believe.
and that was that's not throwing around money. That was doing a lot of cutting to get there. But so at least we're in better shape than what we were in.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. I was not able to go to the conference, and I've been pretty much every time, so I felt bad that I couldn't be there, but I had conflicts. Oh, good. A little closer. Anyway, so I'm glad that we had 3 of us there and representing Temecula, so I appreciate you guys for being there. Today I was able to attend the splash pad ribbon cutting. So if you haven't seen it over the CRC, it's pretty cool. And I know that's been in the works for a while, so we're glad to have that ribbon cutting. So we appreciate Public Works for that and making that happen. And that's it for me. So let's see, commission subcommittee reports. That would be you.
As previously stated, yeah, I attended my first subcommittee meeting night. Planning, we talked about, I'm sorry, I've forgotten Mark's last name. Yeah. Collins, yeah, sorry. I put on a great presentation about how we're going to get in line and make some revisions on our ADU policies, and very informative, well put together, organized, clear, and concise. Well done.
Awesome. Any other subcommittee reports? No? Fernando?
Fernando, you remember we had one? We had one on Serafina. I was in with Mark as well, and we had one on Serafina, and that was mostly about the bonus.
Yeah.
So,
well, we appreciate your work on that, because I know that actually happened tonight. So,
well, and we were very fortunate in that there was quite a bit of coverage of that at the conference. So we had a pretty good idea of what that meant. So, and it's kind of funny that we have our first 2 right away. So
yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right, Matt, you're up.
Just wanted to say I'm glad there was value in the Planning Commissioner Academy. Glad you were able to go to that. And I just wanted to say thank you to Scott and the rest of the team. Those are 3 big projects that you deliberated on tonight, and couldn't do it without everyone here. So thank you to Public Works, our building official, our housing and real estate analyst, and Scott.
Scott's going on, what, a 4-week vacation?
Yeah. No, he's not going anywhere.
All right, thank you. And Public Works?
Yeah, I'll be doing the director's report for Ron tonight. Just want to touch on 2 items. Updates on the French Valley Interchange Phase 2. Both on-ramps are now open. One's completed ahead of the schedule, the last one. The project is still slated for completion in May 2025. The next major milestone is unfortunately going to be another ramp closure, but it's going to be a 55-hour closure, and that's slated to come around either April 18th or the 25th. We'll be doing media blasts on that to let everyone know. And then what that's going to do is tie the on-ramps to the collector distributor roads and open up that bridge. So it's going to be one big weekend work from like Friday night to Sunday afternoon of just 55-hour closure of tying it all together.
Can I say something on that real quick?
Sure.
So I don't know who makes that decision, but that is Easter weekend, 18th through the 20th.
The project is so fluid right now.
Doesn't matter.
They're going to figure out knowing that.
But I think it's probably a lot of men involved that have no idea. So I'm just putting that out there.
I will.
We're going to have a lot of upset people if they cannot get through
on
during Easter weekend.
I will relay that message.
All right, all right.
The other one I want to touch on is actually the Nicholas Road project, how fitting for tonight. By the end of April, that detour that's been established, been going on for quite a while, should be done. So Nicholas Road will be open. There's still going to be a lot of work going on, but that main thoroughfare of Nicholas Road will be open.
When did you say it would be?
Around the end of April is what they're anticipating. And the project is still anticipating total completion in early 2026. So.
Okay. Any questions for Public Works? All right, thank you for being here. All right, woohoo! It's one of our longest meetings. All right, meeting is adjourned until Wednesday, April 2nd. What? April? All right, 6 o'clock. At least it's not on April Fool's Day. All right, meeting adjourned.